These haunted hospitals will send a chill down your spine. Unexplained encounters have left even the most enthusiastic paranormal investigators lost for words. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium, now Waverly Hills Sanatorium, located in Louisville, Kentucky, was open to house the growing number of tuberculosis patients. Due to a lack of medical knowledge at the time, patients were kept outside year-round for fresh air, and many had their lungs surgically removed. It is known as one of the most haunted places on Earth, with countless reports of paranormal activity. One person actually shared their experience working there and said, "I worked in the sanatorium for a while, and a lot of residents always, claim to hallucinate either small dogs or, either eating ice cream before they pass away. It's always facility specific too. This place I worked at, I've had about 6 or 7 residents claim to see a little girl eating ice cream and then they pass on later that night. That seems too coincidental for me, right? The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, now home to the WV lobotomy project, the psychiatric hospital was originally built for 250 patients, but the population rose to over 2,000. Conditions were atrocious, and many patients, suffered. Since closing its doors, maintenance staff have reported ghosts as well as other paranormal sightings. Numerous stories and reports of ghostly phenomena have been associated with the asylum. Some of the more prominent stories include a little girl named Lily who is said to roam the halls, a man named Jesse who allegedly passed away in a bathtub there, and other accounts of strange occurrences and apparitions. Now, one person who worked there shared their story on Reddit. They said, "One evening while training for the job, I was on the first floor with a couple coworkers while everyone else was touring upstairs. We were just kind of, wasting time, quietly observing the area. Light from outside was coming in through the windows, casting on the inner hall's wall. In that light, I watched the perfect silhouette of a man from head to hip walk through that light from left to right." She continued to say, in the wee hours of another night, we figured it would be cool to see what would happen if we shut all the doors of the ward. One of the doors, as I was closing it, the knob twisted in on my hand. This person actually shared several different stories of her times there and all of the paranormal stuff that actually went down. And a lot of the comment section was people just sharing their own stories of times that they took a tour there. It's still actually available for tours, so if this has piqued your interest, go book a visit if you dare. Utica State Hospital, New York's first state-run psychiatric facility built in 1843, was characterized by its grandiose revival architecture, but it was not as glamorous as it looked. It is known for the invention of the Utica crib, which is a cage-like bed that was used to restrain patients. Now, those who have explored the facility since its closing have reported hearing screams and seeing faces in the windows. People who have explored the facility both during its active years and after its closure have reported experiencing just other unsettling phenomena as well, that is basically unexplainable. One visitor said they went and heard nothing but weeping and sobbing, which is a common thing apparently. Most people have heard this as well. Now, most have said this place just feels like lingering spirits, and have felt kind of hands brush against them. Most people said they were skeptics before visiting Utica, but now they are full-blown believers. The Danvers State Hospital, built on the same grounds where the Salem witch trials occurred, Danvers State Hospital possesses a very rich history of paranormal lore. It was originally intended to treat the mentally ill with respect and compassion, but this facility quickly became overcrowded and conditions deteriorated. It is said that Arkham Asylum from Batman was based on this institution. Now, the hospital's history of mistreatment, neglect, and trauma is believed to have left a very lasting impact on the land. Even in passing, the patients were not treated with dignity, with many headstones only having numbers instead of names. Now, the immense suffering of the patients is thought to have lingered, contributing to the ghostly activity there. Visitors report a variety of paranormal experiences like screaming, banging, and crying, apparitions and disembodied voices, particularly in the cemeteries there. Now, deep black shadows and grayish mists there also. Many people have said just an overall sensation of being watched or followed. The 2 cemeteries on the property are considered hotspots for paranormal activity, with apparitions and voices just being the most common reports there. Alton Mental Health Center. Now, the Alton Mental Health Center in Illinois is the only facility on this list still in operation today. Once home to cold water treatment, electroshock therapy, and lobotomies, this hospital is notorious for its mistreatment of patients. Like many other hospitals of the time, time, the hospital was also a working farm. It was believed that the work and responsibility was necessary in the treatment of mental health crises. Now, Alton State Hospital became well known for its gorgeous grounds. Patients were allowed to care for the cattle and other animals and plants, which included a well-stocked fish pond, apple orchard, and even tobacco crops. Now, one patient even grew peanuts, which they then sold in Upper Alton. Now, in 1918, the hospital recognized the need for an attached cemetery for those who passed away and were unknown or unclaimed. Later, though, the hospital was even used to house, shell-shocked soldiers coming home from the horrors of World War I. Alton State Hospital earned a reputation, though, for mistreating patients, subjecting them to crude treatments that sometimes lasted hours or even days. Considered cutting-edge treatment at the time would be labeled as torment today. Now, in modern times, many people, have reported paranormal interactions, including 2 nurses who heard a voice whispering to them in the same spot. Staff and visitors report hearing unusual sounds, disembodied voices, slamming doors, and nurses on duty reported hearing a quiet voice that asked them, "Who is that?" Others report the sensation of just being touched, and one photo even showed a bright orb with a vision of a man's face in agony. So while the facility, is still operational today, ghost investigators who managed to visit are told by spirits to get out, promptly being pushed out of the room. Rolling Hills Asylum, located in upstate New York, Rolling Hills Asylum was originally known as the Genesee County Poor Farm. Established in 1827, the Genesee County Poorhouse, originally a working farm, soon became a refuge for some of society's less fortunate. Widows and orphans mingled with the mentally ill, and the unclaimed passed on were buried on the property. With over 1,700 documented demises and hundreds not recorded, it's no wonder, Haunted North America rated it as the second most haunted site in the United States. Throughout its history, it's operated as an orphanage, infirmary, sanatorium, and a nursing home. Now, thousands of unmarked bodies are buried here, and the facility has been featured on many TV shows. Today, it is part of the Haunted History Trail of New York State. One person did share their experience visiting on Reddit and said, "My fiance took me on a 6-hour unguided ghost hunt for my birthday at Rolling Hills Asylum. These photos were taken right when we began our investigation at 8:41 p.m. They have timestamps. I was walking down the first floor hallway past the infamous ramps. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw someone peek their head out of a room. I checked in the room assuming it was probably someone else exploring. I was alone. I stopped and snapped some pictures after I reviewed the photos later on in the night and realized I had caught a shadow in the doorway. I saw someone poking their head out. Ooh, that gave me chills." Eloise Psychiatric Hospital. Like Rolling Hills, Eloise Psychiatric Hospital was originally a poorhouse located in Wayne County, Michigan. It grew, to become a massive complex with over 50 buildings. It housed a variety of patients, including those with mental illnesses and chronic medical conditions. The hospital was known for its often very brutal and inhumane treatments, including lobotomies, hydrotherapy, and other methods that are now considered unethical. Ghost stories have plagued its reputation, and human remains have been found in jars on the premises. Widely accepted by locals to be haunted, it was sold to basically create a new housing complex in 2018. Many people, including those who have worked at or investigated the property, have reported experiencing paranormal, experiences such as seeing ghosts, hearing whispers, witnessing objects moving on their own. So, the Eloise Asylum has been transformed now into a haunted attraction, offering tours and escape room experiences that, leverage the building's reputation for paranormal activity. The asylum is currently actually being considered for a $4 million renovation, with plans to convert it into a haunted hotel, which further emphasizes this reputation as a haunted location. The Royal Hope Hospital. Last on my list is the Royal Hope Hospital. This hospital was a Spanish military hospital in St. Augustine, Florida, in use from 1784 to 1821. One of the oldest hospitals in Florida, the Royal Hope Hospital has been an integral part of Florida's history since its original building was constructed, all the way back in the late 1700s. St. Augustine is the oldest city in Florida, so it's no surprise that Royal Hope calls, Old City home. Now, the original building was demolished and a replica was later constructed, at which point it was discovered to be built upon a Native American burial ground. Now, there have been many sightings, of ghosts and reports of objects moving on their own. The surgeon's office is actually said to be the most haunted. This room is home to a spirit who likes to grab onto visitors' clothes and refuses to let them go. His grasp is described as basically freezing cold, hard, and forceful. One visitor stated that she could actually feel a large hand gripping her clothing, refusing to let her go. The only way to shake it off was to run out of the room as quickly as possible. Luckily, the clingy spirit didn't follow her out. The Screaming Tunnel in Ontario, Canada. If you think ghosts are quiet, sad little little souls floating around in white sheets. Think again. This haunting isn't just heard, it screams back. And it happens in a cold stone tunnel under a rural railroad line near Niagara Falls, Ontario. A tunnel so haunted that people have been physically attacked inside it on camera. The Screaming Tunnel is one of Canada's most disturbing legends, but unlike most folklore, this one has footage, real, shaky, terrifying footage captured by hikers, ghost hunters, and teenage thrill seekers who've returned from the tunnel changed. Built in the early 1900s, the tunnel was originally a drainage passage for the Grand Trunk Railway, but over time, it picked up a reputation so terrifying that even locals refused to go near it at night. Ask them why, and they'll tell you the story. A girl once ran into the tunnel to escape a fire, her clothes burning, her lungs filling with smoke. She passed away inside the tunnel, and now they say if you light a match inside, her scream shatters the silence as her spirit relives her last moments. A scary story, sure, but that doesn't explain what happened on October 14, 2015, when a paranormal investigation channel filmed inside the tunnel and captured a scream so powerful and clear that experts later analyzed the audio and ruled it out that it was human. No joke. Audio technicians analyzed the waveform of this scream basically captured in the tunnel and concluded the pitch and the reverb did not behave like human vocal frequencies inside a tunnel that size. So in other words, it sounded real, but also impossible. The microphones began to distort, not from wind, not from interference, but from something blocking the sound waves, like invisible pressure in the tunnel itself. Then it happened. One investigator lighted a match, and just like the legend says, in that exact second, something screams from the darkness, not from behind them, ahead of them, deep inside the tunnel. And this scream, it does not fade like a normal sound. It actually cuts off abruptly, like something standing right in front of them just closed its mouth. The Demon of the Sally House. This is in Kansas. Now, some hauntings are tragic, some are restless, but this house, it's a little different. This haunting draws horror. The Sally House in Kansas looks normal from the outside completely, a two-story family home on a quiet street, but watch the footage recorded inside and you'll understand why investigators don't call it haunted, they call it predatory. Now, the legend starts with a 6-year-old girl named Sally who supposedly passed on during a botched emergency surgery in the home during the 1900s. Locals say she brought to the town doctor who lived in the house screaming in pain from appendicitis. The story goes that the doctor panicked and began cutting before the anesthesia took hold. Now, Sally woke up mid-surgery, terrified of course, and then passed away on the table. The urban legend claims she now haunts the house. Cute ghost story, right? Well, except the haunting in this house is not a little girl, and the video evidence proves it. Most people first heard of the Sally House from the 1900s when a young couple named Tony and Deborah Pickman moved in. Deborah reported lights flickering, toys moving, cold spots, classic, haunting signs. But Tony, well, he was targeted physically, violently, and in multiple videos recorded by the Sightings TV crew. Tony can be seen actually being scratched in real time, deep red claw-like marks appearing across his stomach and chest while cameras are rolling. No CGI, no practical effects or efforts. You can actually watch his skin open up on camera as he screams in confusion and pain. In one clip from 1993, an investigator asked Tony what he's feeling. Tony says, "Something's behind me." He pulls up his shirt and 3 scratches appear from nowhere, trailing down his back like something raked him from shoulder to spine. The number 3 is significant in demonology. I mean, the number of mockery meant to insult the Holy Trinity. That's not a child's spirit. That's not a harmless haunting. That's aggression. Professional paranormal investigators from the Atlantic Paranormal Society, Ghost Adventures, and private demonologists have attempted to cleanse the house. Every team reports the exact same thing. Not a ghost, not Sally, something else entirely. The EVPs captured inside the Sally House are among the most disturbing ever recorded. Voices, raspy, male, angry, growling, get out, mine, hurt, and most chilling of all, them hearing them say, "Unalive Tony," unalive them. It uses Tony's name. I mean, animals refuse to even enter the house. Dogs brought in by researchers whine at the threshold. I mean, one rescue dog broke free, dragging its handler away from the front door and refusing to return. Experts say that kind of behavior only happens around aggressive predators. So tell me, what exactly stalks people inside that house? Some investigators believe the little girl story is the distraction. They believe something darker uses the Sally persona to lure people in. Think about it. I mean, what do ghost hunters go crazy for? Child spirits, right? Emotional stories, tragedy, it's bait. Hundreds of people walk right towards it. Tony and Deborah Pickman eventually did flee the home, refusing to step foot inside ever again. Tony said in a very rare interview, "It didn't just follow us, it lived inside me. I could feel it watching through my my own eyes. Now, the footage from inside the Sally house remains some of the most analyzed paranormal video evidence ever. The only thing scarier than the evidence is that the house is still open to rent. It's still active. It's still attacking, still there waiting for more people, and it just hasn't stopped. So if you're looking for somewhere to live, go check it out. The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall. Now, this is in Norfolk, England. Some ghosts flicker in and out of blurry cell phone footage. This one posed for a photograph and became the most famous apparition ever captured. Newspapers tried to dismiss it, skeptics tried to debunk it, but nearly a century later, the footage keeps stacking up and the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall refuses to disappear. Now, Raynham Hall is a 17th century country estate in England, quiet, elegant, the definition of old world royalty. But behind the portraits and chandeliers is a haunting, so historic that even King George claimed to see the ghost himself. The legend begins with Lady Dorothy Walpole, sister of Britain's first prime minister. Now, in 1713, Dorothy secretly married a very wealthy nobleman named Charles Townshend, known for his violent temper and jealousy. When he discovered she had once been involved with another man before marrying him, he snapped and lost it. He locked her inside Raynham Hall, isolated from the world, telling family that she had just simply passed away. But she didn't pass away immediately. She lived inside that house for another decade, trapped in there, cut off from her children, forbidden to leave. When she finally passed, some say, executed, others say from smallpox. She never left the hall. It's very much giving like Beauty and the Beast gone wrong. Now, for centuries, guests reported seeing a sorrowful woman, kind of in a brown satin dress, drifting through the property. Her face was gray, eyes hollow, but then something changed. Her presence grew stronger, more aggressive, and in 1936, she was actually caught on camera during a photo shoot for Country Life magazine. Photographers Captain Provent and Andre Shira were taking interior shots of the mansion's grand staircase. When the photo was developed, a translucent form glided down the staircase wearing a brown period gown. This wasn't a blur or dust smudge, it was a structured apparition with depth. The photo was examined by the Society for, Physical or Psychic Research and later by Kodak and other photography experts. Now, multiple tests concluded just deceased. No evidence or doubt exposure, no double exposure, no signs of tampering, no chemical manipulation, and there was no stage composition. The conclusion basically inconclusive but authentic. So the capture remains one of the most heavily studied, ghost photos in the world. But whatever happened in that house, Dorothy is still there, so none of that worked, and it's clear she does not want visitors. The Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. Imagine checking into a hotel so haunted that it inspired one of the most terrifying horror novels ever written. That's the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, the real-life inspiration behind Stephen King's The Shining. One chilling story goes like this. Guests in room 217 have woken up to see a woman standing at the foot of their bed. She doesn't scream, she doesn't move, she simply stares. Her name is said to be Elizabeth Wilson, a housekeeper who nearly passed away in a gas explosion in that very room in 1911. Guests have reported their luggage mysteriously unpacked, lights flickering on their own, and even blankets being tucked tightly around them at night, like a ghostly maid still kind of tending to her duties. But that's not the only room that terrifies visitors. Room 401 is haunted by a ghost named Lord Dunraven, who originally owned the land before the Stanley was built. Guests have complained of being watched, hearing footsteps pacing, and even having their jewelry stolen by unseen hands. The children's laughter in the hallways, despite no kids being booked on that floor, only makes it worse. Stephen King and his wife stayed here in 1974, and during the night, he reportedly dreamed of his son running through the endless hallways screaming. That nightmare became the seed for The Shining. Ever since, Stanley has been a magnet for ghost hunters and paranormal investigators. Even the cast of Ghost Hunters caught a piano playing itself in the ballroom. For decades, terrified visitors have left in the middle of the night, unable to endure the strange voices, cold spots, and the overwhelming sense of dread that seems to seep through the walls. Some even say that once you step into the Stanley, the hotel decides if it wants you to leave or stay forever. The Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Guests call it America's most haunted hotel, and they're not exaggerating. The Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas has been the site of tragic demises, sinister experiments, and an endless parade of restless spirits. But the most terrifying story starts with a man named Norman Baker. In the 1930s, Baker, a con artist masquerading as a doctor, bought the hotel and turned it into a cancer hospital. He claimed he had a cure, but what patients really got was torment. Baker injected patients with dangerous concoctions, locked them in rooms, and let them waste away. Hundreds passed away inside the Crescent's walls, their bodies buried in the basement, now known as the morgue. Guests today say they hear the moans of those patients echoing through the halls. Some report seeing shadowy figures in hospital gowns wandering aimlessly at night. Now, the most famous ghost is Michael, a stonemason who fell to his demise while building the hotel in 1885. Guests in room 218 say they've seen his figure appear suddenly, slamming doors, shaking the bed, or even pushing people. Then there's the ghost of a little girl in a Victorian dress who often appears near the stairwells. Some say she's looking for her mother, as others believe she's one of Baker's forgotten victims. One hotel employee swears she saw the girl run across the lobby only to vanish in front of their eyes. In recent years, archaeologists actually uncovered jars of human tissue buried on the property, direct evidence of Baker's gruesome experiments. This discovery confirmed that the Crescent isn't just haunted by rumors, but by the real suffering of the people who passed away there. If you check in, don't be surprised if you hear whispers at 3 a.m. or if the elevator suddenly takes you to the basement on its own. The Crescent Hotel has a way of showing you its secrets, whether you want to see them or not. The Queen Mary Hotel in Long Beach, California. Now, the Queen Mary isn't just a hotel, it's a massive retired ocean liner that sailed the seas from 1936 to 1967. But once it was docked in Long Beach and converted into a floating hotel, the hauntings began to spill out. The Queen Mary is said to be one of the most haunted places in the world, with at least 150 spirits roaming its corridors. But the scariest stories are centered around its engine room and swimming pool. In the engine room, door 13 has claimed the life of at least 2 men, one crushed to demise during a drill. Now, guests and crew report seeing a man in blue overalls walking near the door, only for him to vanish into thin air. The temperature drops instantly, and sometimes greasy handprints appear on the walls where no one was standing. Then there's the haunted swimming pool. Though it's been drained for years, visitors report the sound of splashing, laughter, and wet footprints appearing on the tiles. 2 women are said to haunt the spot, both actually passed in mysterious circumstances in the pool. One ghost, nicknamed Jackie, is often heard calling for her parents. Some guests claim to have recorded her voice even. Now, during World War II, the Queen Mary carried troops that was nicknamed the Great Ghost. Hundreds of men passed away aboard, and many never left. Now, today, paranormal investigators have captured everything from, screams in the infirmary to shadowy figures crossing hallways in front of startled guests. Staying overnight means sleeping among restless souls who never completed their voyage. One former hotel guest described being woken up by a man standing over her bed, dripping wet, staring blankly before vanishing. Another swore her bathroom lights flickered on and off repeatedly with the sound of running water, but the faucets were bone dry. The Queen Mary's haunted reputation is so infamous that even skeptics walk away shaken. The Mizpah Hotel, this is in Tonopah, Nevada. Now, if you've ever wanted to sleep in a room where a ghost might crawl into bed with you, the Mizpah Hotel in Nevada might be your nightmare come true. The most infamous ghost here is known as the Lady in Red. According to legend, she was a working woman of the night. Hopefully you catch my drift. Anyway, she was a woman who lived and worked at that hotel during the early 1900s. Depending on the story, she was there assassinated by a jealous lover or actually beaten to her demise by a client. Her spirit never left though. Guests in the Lady in the Red room report waking up to find pearls scattered across the floor as if she left behind her broken necklace. Some men have even claimed to feel her climbing into bed beside them, whispering softly in their ear before vanishing. Others say she leaves behind the strong scent of roses or expensive perfume even. But the Lady in Red isn't the only ghost stalking the Mizpah. There are stories of children running through the hallways, laughing one minute, crying the next. The Phantom Miner is said to wander the basement, a reminder, that this rough gold rush past that they had. Now, the Mizpah's history makes its hauntings all too believable. Built in 1907, it was once one of the most luxurious hotels in Nevada, but it also sat in a mining town filled with violence, gambling, and sudden demises. Countless tragedies unfolded behind its walls, giving birth to restless spirits. The hotel closed in 1999 and sat abandoned for years. During this time, paranormal investigators documented eerie whispers, slamming doors, and even a figure in a red dress captured on film. Since reopening in 2011, guests continue to leave with stories of encounters that prove the Lady in Red has no intention of ever checking out. The Crescent City's Hotel Monteleone in New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans is already known as one of the most haunted cities in America, but the Hotel Monteleone might be its most unsettling treasure. This French Quarter landmark has been family owned since 1886. 1986, and over the decades, countless guests have sworn it's alive with spirits. The creepiest stories revolve around the 14th floor, though technically it's actually the 13th floor that was, renumbered to avoid superstition. Guests here have seen ghostly children running through the halls, laughing and vanishing through the walls. The most famous of these spirits is a boy named Maurice Begur, who passed away in the hotel after a fever. Now, his parents were longtime guests, and when his mother returned, she swore she could still hear Maurice calling to her. To this day, guests say they hear a child's voice saying "mummy," in the still of night. The hotel also has a haunted restaurant area where patrons see men in tuxedos from another era raising glasses before disappearing. Elevators are known to stop on the wrong floor, doors opening to empty hallways filled with sudden cold air. Authors like Tennessee Williams and William Faulkner stayed here, and some claim the atmosphere of the hotel itself fuels creativity, though others believe it's because the spirits of the deceased linger so close to the living. One guest reported waking up to see a man standing at the foot of her bed, dressed in a 1920s suit. She blinked and he was gone, but the strong smell of cigar smoke filled the room, even though smoking is banned in the hotel. The Monteleone embraces its haunted reputation, but make no mistake, this is not just marketing. Paranormal groups have reportedly captured strange orbs, phantom voices, and even full-body apparitions. Now, in a city overflowing with ghost stories, the Monteleone, still manages to terrify. The Monroe Demon House in Hartford City, Indiana. It started like every other investigation. A team of ghost hunters entered an old house in Indiana called the Monroe House, a place whispered to be cursed, but within minutes, something in the basement made them bolt. Cameras were dropped, equipment left behind. No one wanted to go back inside. In that basement, there was a crawl space hidden behind a sealed door. Locals said the air inside was thick and metallic, and that strange growling sounds could be heard even from the street. Now, when investigators entered, they reported hearing whispers coming from the walls, and one of them claimed to see a shadowy figure crouched in the corner. Later, bones were allegedly found in that crawl space, small, broken, and human. No one ever confirmed where they came from. Now, during a later investigation, two well-known paranormal investigators spent 72 hours inside the house. They described seeing orbs moving on their own, feeling cold spots rush through their bodies, and watching doors slam with no one near them. One investigator admitted that the house made him physically ill. Locals say if you walk by at night, you can actually still see the upstairs window glowing faintly, even though the power was cut off years ago. The Poplar Hill Nanny House in Hillsborough, North Carolina. Now, it was supposed to be a peaceful new beginning. In 2014, journalist and musician Tom Maxwell and his wife, Brooke, found what seemed like their dream home, a beautiful, historic two-story in Hillsborough, North Carolina. Now, locals called it Nanny, but almost from the moment they unpacked their boxes, the house began to turn against them. Brooke was the first to notice the strange things happening. She said it started with the feeling that someone was standing behind her, watching her. Then one night, she woke up, paralyzed with fear, to see a tall, hooded figure leaning over her bed. Its arms were unnaturally long, its hands thin and bone-like. It just stared at her, and then all of a sudden, it was gone. Now, from that moment on, their dream home became a nightmare. Doors had been locked, they were found open in the morning. Footsteps would creak along the hallway upstairs when everyone was downstairs. The house had a heartbeat. It breathed at night. Tom tried to dismiss it. Old houses make noises, right? He told himself that over and over and over again, but soon, even he couldn't explain what they were actually seeing. One afternoon, a glass flew off the kitchen counter and shattered in front of them. Now, on another night, a door slammed so hard, it cracked the frame. In a room no one had entered all day. Then came the scratches. Brooke stepped into the shower one morning only to cry out in pain as long red welts appeared across her back, right before Tom's eyes. It looked like something invisible had clawed her. And, they both basically just stood frozen in shock. Now, after that, they actually began to see them, the apparitions. Now, Tom called them the Spook Parade. A woman in a 19th century bonnet appeared at the top of the stairs. A gray mist shaped like a man hovered by their daughter's room. Sometimes they'd catch sight of shadowy figures gliding silently from one wall to another and disappearing through them. Now, desperate, they brought in local paranormal investigators, but the team didn't last long. One man claimed that as soon as he entered the house, his equipment stopped working and his chest tightened as if someone was pressing against him. He described feeling a freezing breath against his neck, then hearing a voice whisper, "Leave now." Another investigator, a woman, ran out of the back room crying, saying something had brushed her hand in the dark. None of them ever came back. The Maxwells tried every every form of protection they could think of. Prayers, sage, salt lines across doorways. Tom even sprinkled salt along the baseboards and window frames, saying, if the house wants to be evil, fine, but it's not taking us with it. But the activity only got worse. Cold air would pour out from beneath doors, and the smell of perfume, old and powdery, filled the hallways at night. The family's dog would bark furiously at corners of the room where nothing stood, and the longer they stayed, the sicker they became. Headaches, fatigue, constant dread. After 9 agonizing months, the Maxwells couldn't take it anymore. They packed up in the middle of the night and left the house behind. Tom later said, we didn't move out, we escaped. Now, to this day, the house still stands. Locals swear that even now, if you drive by late at night, you might see a light flicker on in an upstairs window, even though no one lives there. The Ammon's Demon House, this is in Gary, Indiana. Now, this isn't just another haunted house story. This is one that left police officers, priests, and social workers traumatized. The year was 2011. Latoya Ammons and her 3 children moved into a modest rental home on Carolina Street in Indiana. Now, it looked perfectly ordinary, but it would soon be called one of the most terrifying true demonic cases in modern history. It started with flies. Now, in the dead of winter, thick black flies swarmed around the porch, clustering on windows and doors. No matter how many they actually hurt, they kept coming back. Then came the sounds: footsteps on the basement stairs, heavy breathing in empty rooms, and doors slamming themselves shut. One night, Latoya's mother, Rosa Campbell, woke up to a dark shadow pacing in her bedroom. She said it felt like someone was standing over her, staring at her. It was pure evil. Now, what happened next pushed the story into legend. Latoya's children began to change. They'd talk to things that weren't there. They'd growl in deep voices that didn't sound human, and one day, in front of medical staff, one of her sons reportedly walked backwards up a wall, then flipped over and landed on his feet. Witnesses, including a hospital nurse and a DCS worker, confirmed what they saw. Priests were called in, exorcisms were performed. Police officers who investigated claimed they heard footsteps echoing in the basement when no one was actually inside. Now, one officer's recorder malfunctioned, then began playing distorted screams when replayed later. When renowned paranormal investigator Zach Bagans heard about the case, he bought the house outright to investigate it himself. But from the moment his team arrived, things went horribly wrong. Crew members fell sick, cameras, stopped for no reason. One investigator collapsed, claiming he felt something enter his body. He described a very heaviness in the room, like the air itself was pressing down. He said he saw shadowy figures darting across the hallways, and once, something unseen slammed the door with such force that the actual hinges bent. After documenting everything he could, Bagans made a shocking decision. He had the house demolished, completely torn down, claiming it was too dangerous to remain standing. Whatever's in there, he said, should never have a chance to escape. Even skeptics couldn't deny that something unexplainable happened there. Police reports, social worker testimonies, and church records all confirm strange occurrences. And locals say after the demolition, nothing will grow on that lot. No grass, no weeds, nothing. The land is still empty today. A quiet patch of dirt surrounded by chain link fence, and residents swear they still hear voices at night drifting through the air where the house once stood. The Smurl Haunting in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. For over a decade, the Smurl family lived in a nightmare that blurred the line between haunting and hell itself. From 1974 to 1989, Jack and Janet Smurl claimed their quiet family home was infested by something inhuman. It started with knocking sounds, flickering lights, and the stench of rotting flesh, but soon the attacks became physical. Their dog was thrown across a room, their beds would shake violently in the middle of the night. Janet said she was grabbed, scratched, and even attacked by something she couldn't see. Now, when famed demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated, they described the case as one of the darkest they'd ever faced. Now, during their time, their door slammed so hard the hinges bent and mirrors cracked spontaneously. Some paranormal researchers who visited the home reportedly refused to spend the night. One priest called it something beyond demonic. Eventually, the Smurls moved, but the house remained, and neighbors still claim they hear screams echoing from inside when the wind actually slows down. Balbairn House in Scotland. Now, long before ghost hunting TV shows existed, there was the Balbairn House, a 19th century mansion so feared it was called the most haunted house in Scotland. Now, the story began with Major Robert Stewart, who lived there in the 1800s. He believed in reincarnation, and he was convinced he'd return as a dog after his passing. Now, to prevent that, he reportedly unalived his own dogs so no other spirit could use them as vessels, which is insane. Now, after his demise, locals said the dogs came back for revenge. Guests heard barking in empty halls, felt cold noses kind of brush against their legs, and saw shadowy shapes moving at night. Now, when Britain's Society for Physical Research investigated, basically in the 1890s, their investigators were overwhelmed. They documented apparitions of a ghostly nun, phantom footsteps, and sudden crushing cold that forced them out of rooms. One researcher quit mid-investigation, calling the energy inside unbearable. Another refused to ever discuss what she witnessed. By the 1930s, Balbairn House was abandoned, and when it burned to the ground in the 1960s, locals said the fire glowed an unnatural green. So even in ruin, people still avoid walking across the land where it stood. These aren't your average haunted houses. These are places where reality seems to break, where investigators, priests, and skeptics all reach their limit. I mean, from basements full of bones to Indiana to ghostly nuns in Scotland, these stories remind us that sometimes there really is something in the dark that doesn't want to be found. So the next time you watch a paranormal investigation and think, I could handle that. The Smurl Lighthouse tragedy. Now, the Smurl Lighthouse rises from the storm-tossed waters of the Celtic Sea just off the coast of Wales. It seems like a lonely sentinel, guarding against shipwrecks, but the sea it watches over has claimed far more than ships. It has claimed sanity and even life itself. The lighthouse was built in 1776 at the demand of merchant shipping companies' frustrations who were losing both vessels and profit in these waters. Dock Master Phillips got approval for the construction and bizarrely went with musical instrument makers Henry Whiteside's design for the lighthouse. Now, this turned out to be a bad choice. In 1801, two men, Thomas Howell and his assistant Thomas Griffith, who were stationed there, being a lighthouse keeper then was not really a glamorous job. It was a test of endurance, patience, and mental fortitude. Now, the Smurl Lighthouse was isolated, battered by wind, waves, and freezing spray. Food was scarce and supplies had to be hauled up, precautiously, and contact with the mainland was very rare, sometimes non-existent for weeks. Now, during their shift though, Griffith passed away suddenly. Some say it was illness, others whisper that the harsh conditions drove him to a fatal mistake. Howell, left alone, faced an impossible problem. How could he deal with the corpse when he had no tools or help? He did the unthinkable. He lashed Griffith's body to the outside of the lighthouse. Day after day, the corpse kind of swung in the wind, and Howell was forced to live with it. Sailors who passed the lighthouse later reported seeing the skeletal arms sway in the wind, an eternal ghastly kind of reminder of, just isolation and demise. Now, the psychological toll was unimaginable. Howell himself later recounted feeling haunted, sometimes seeing Griffith's shadowy figure moving in corners where no one could, and this gruesome tragedy spurred authorities to rethink lighthouse staffing, increasing crews from 2 to 3 men for both safety and just mental well-being. The Blue Lady of Hilton Head Island. Now, this is devotion beyond demise. Now, the Blue Lady of Hilton Head is a ghost story about Caroline, the daughter of a 19th century lighthouse keeper at the Hilton Head Island Rear Range Lighthouse, or Leamington Lighthouse. Now, the Hilton Head Island Lighthouse in South Carolina is famous not just for guiding ships, but for spirits that roam its lantern room. This is the tale of Caroline Fripp, who again is the daughter of lighthouse keeper Adam Fripp. Now, it was 1893 and a devastating hurricane slammed the coastline. Adam, a man known for his diligence, refused to leave his post. I mean, the light had to stay lit, he believed, to protect the sailors who relied on it. But during the hurricane, he collapsed and passed away in the lantern room, his heart unable to withstand the storm. Caroline, only a young woman, promised to stay and keep the light functioning, so she took up her father's mantle. She donned a flowing blue dress, the color her father had always admired, and climbed the spiral staircase into the lantern room. Now, for a week, she maintained the light, sometimes alone, often in darkness, listening to the wind screaming through the treetops and waves smashing against the shoreline. She worked tirelessly through the storm. Exhausted, she too succumbed, but legend says her spirit never left. Caroline was buried in a blue dress, and which she was wearing when she worked the light. Visitors often report seeing a figure in blue moving along the lighthouse spiral stairs or glimpsing her reflection in the glass of the lantern room during storms. Some claim the light flickers when no storm is present, as if Caroline is still making sure it stays on. Now, paranormal investigators have recorded unexplained cold spots, faint footsteps inside the lighthouse, especially near the lantern room, and to commemorate the legend, the Palmetto Dunes Resort actually created a Blue Lady IPA beer. The Seguin Island Lighthouse. Now, this is the piano that played for the deceased. The legend of the Seguin Island Lighthouse involves a 19th century lighthouse keeper who, driven mad by his wife's repetitive playing of a single piano tune on their isolated island, axed the piano, unalived her, and then himself. So on Seguin Island off the coast of Maine, a lighthouse sits kind of harsh between, winds and rolling waves. It's small but foreboding, and with a tale that combines isolation, obsession, and tragedy. In the early 1800s, a lighthouse keeper brought his young wife to the island. It was a lonely existence. Weeks could pass without seeing another human, so to occupy her, he got her a piano and shipped it to the island, and it was a gift meant to provide comfort. But soon, a chilling pattern emerged. She learned only one song, played it over and over and over, day after day. Sailors reported hearing the melody drifting over the water, very eerie and, insistent. Now, the repetition superstition wore on the keeper's mind, he became convinced that the piano, and perhaps his wife herself, was trying to drive him mad. One night in a frenzy, he destroyed the piano and in his very deranged state took his wife's life. Soon after, he ended his own life. Now the island was left in silence. Today, the piano's tune is actually said to haunt the island. Visitors report hearing faint notes in, the dead of night, even when no instrument is present. Shadows are seen moving in the lighthouse, and some say the couple's spirits replay the final moments of their tragic lives. Anyone who visits claims to still hear the faint sound of the piano, and one of historians, Jeremy de Torment, has found no evidence to support these stories, suggesting it is likely fiction, but during the summer months, visitors can take a ferry from Popham Beach for tours of the island. Now, despite its spooky and very haunted past, the island does offer a unique blend of just natural beauty and a chance to explore the history and the legends of the lighthouses there. So if you're ever in the area, go visit and report back to us. The St. Augustine Lighthouse. Now, this is the Pity Sisters haunting. The St. Augustine Lighthouse in Florida is not just a beacon, it's a monument to tragedy. Now, after being darkened during the Civil War on June 1st, 1867, the old Spanish watchtower once more became a functioning lighthouse with the return of its light. Nevertheless, though, it soon became clear that the structure would soon lose the battle with Mother Nature as the sea continued to erode the land around the lighthouse. After several reports to the United States Lighthouse Board referencing the erosion and, encroaching seas, Congress approved the money for a new St. Augustine Lighthouse Tower. The construction of the tower began in 1871, but what was supposed to be a benefit to public transportation and safety soon turned to tragedy. So Hezekiah Pity, a lighthouse keeper, moved his family from Maine to oversee the lighthouse construction in the 1870s. His daughters, Mary, Eliza, and little Carrie, were a very lively presence exploring the site as it was being built. Now, just as any children would, the Pity children turned the construction site into a playground, inviting the children of the workers into their fun. A railway cart moved the supplies from supply ships docked at Salt Run to the building site. Now, riding the cart down to the water was a favorite pastime for the Pity children. They used the cart as a Victorian era kind of roller coaster, riding the cart to the water and bringing it back up to the site to ride again. Only a wooden board at the end of the rail stopped the cart from tipping over into the water. One fateful day, however, a cart carrying the girls and I believe another child, which was their friend, overturned near the water. Carrie, the youngest, was saved, but Mary and Eliza drowned. Now, the grief that followed left a mark not just on the family, but on the lighthouse itself. Now, in the 145 years since the accident, strange occurrences have been repeatedly attributed to the spirits of the girls. In 1955, the lighthouse lamp was fully automated, and the United States Coast Guard replaced lighthouse keepers with a position called lamp lighter. Now, the local lamplighter had all the duties of a light keeper, but did not live on site. As a result, the keeper's house was rented for a time. A local man who crafted leather goods rented the property during the 1960s. Now, he tells the story of waking up one night with a small girl standing by his bed. As he blinked his eyes to look at her, she disappeared. Another evening, a female guest on a Dark of the Moon tour was standing on the first step of the metal lighthouse staircase. When she took her first step to climb the tower, she found her shoelace tied to the staircase. Whether it was a ghost or her companion playing a trick, we really can't say. Now, visitors now report the giggles of children echoing through the spiral staircases, shadows kind of fitting across the walls, and cold spots near areas associated with the girls passing. Some have even claimed to see two figures holding hands watching from the lighthouse windows. Paranormal investigations have captured unexplained sounds and moving shadows, strengthening the belief that the Pity sisters remain guardians of the lighthouse and its light. The Point au Barques Lighthouse, the keeper who never left. Now, the keeper who never left refers to the legend of Catherine Shook, Michigan's first female lighthouse keeper at Point au Barques, who is said to haunt the lighthouse after her husband drowned in 1849. While no actual keeper has permanently remained, Catherine is said to be seen in mourning clothes on the cliffs or in the lighthouse window, with visitors reporting strange occurrences. Michigan's Point au Barques Lighthouse stands on the edge of Lake Huron, a solitary sentinel in a landscape of storms and just shipwrecks. Now, since its construction in 1847, it has seen countless tragedies. One tale tells of one keeper's wife who also fell to her demise while navigating the narrow spiral staircase during a blizzard. Staff report seeing her figure in a long white gown and feeling sudden chills near the staircase. Locals call her Lighthouse Lucy, a spirit said to linger in a protective, sometimes mischievous, kind of watch over the building. Over the years, multiple shipwrecks occurred near the lighthouse, each adding to its, spectral population. Visitors have reported hearing ghostly voices calling for help, seeing lights flicker without cause and doors opening on their own. Investigators have documented unexplained unexplained electromagnetic activity and temperature fluctuations. Footsteps and giggling have also been heard on the lighthouse top stairs. Now, the combination of the lighthouse's history of tragedy and these ghostly accounts makes this site a popular location for ghost hunters. This lighthouse now serves as a museum, but its ghostly residents seem unwilling to leave a haunting reminder of, the lives of those who maintained the light and the waters it watched over. These haunted lighthouses, each with their tragic past, often, they offer more than just ghost stories. They tell stories of isolation, bravery, and obsession, where the line between life and demise, reality and legend blurs. When you walk the staircases, listen to the wind against the glass, or feel the cold seep into your bones, remember, some lights never go out, and some spirits never leave. The Crescent Hotel doesn't ease you in gently. People don't talk about strange feelings or vague unease here. They talk about being touched, followed, watched, and spoken to by people who shouldn't exist. Perched high in the Ozarks, the Crescent Hotel opened in the late 1800s as a luxury Victorian resort. It was meant to be a place of healing, fresh air, and elegance, but that promise did not last long. Over the decades, the building changed hands and purposes, and one chapter in particular stained it permanently. Now, in the 1930s, the hotel was taken over by a man claiming he had discovered a miracle cure for cancer. He converted the elegant hotel into a so-called hospital, bringing in desperately ill patients from across the country. The treatments were fake, the promises were lies, and many of those patients never actually left alive. Guests today are told the bodies were quietly transported through the building, sometimes stored in the basement, sometimes removed under cover of darkness. Staff members say the atmosphere changes the moment you step into the old hospital areas. The air feels heavier, the silence feels intentional. Now, room 218 is infamous. It's said to be occupied by the spirit of a stonemason who fell to his demise during construction. Guests staying there report lights flickering on and off, voices whispering their names, and the very unsettling sensation of someone just kind of standing directly beside the bed. Then there's the woman believed to be named Theodora. Guests described waking up to find her belongings nearly rearranged, their blankets tucked tighter, or the distinct feeling of being watched from the corner of the room. Some even claim they've spoken to her, only to realize later no one was physically there. Now, in the old morgue, visitors report shadow figures drifting or darting across the walls, children's laughter echoing through empty corridors, and doors slamming shut without any explanation. Paranormal investigators have captured audio recordings of voices responding unintelligently to questions. Now, what makes the Crescent especially terrifying isn't just the number of ghost stories, it's the consistency here. Different people, different decades, same rooms, same encounters. People check in for a weekend getaway, some leave convinced they were never alone. The Menger Hotel sits calmly beside the Alamo, but its calm is deceptive. This building stands on land soaked in violence, history, and very unfinished business, and many believe that energy just never dissipated. Opened in the late 1850s, the Menger quickly became a gathering place for soldiers, politicians, and powerful figures, but alongside, its prestigious guests came demise, heartbreak, and betrayal. One of the most commonly reported spirits is a woman known as Sally. She was chambermaid who lived and worked inside the hotel. Now, according to long-standing accounts, her life ended violently, and she actually never truly left. Staff members say they've seen her pushing a cleaning cart through empty hallways late at night. Guests report feeling their blankets tugged, their pillows adjusted slightly, or someone just sitting briefly on the edge of their bed before disappearing. But, Sally isn't alone. There are reports of children running through the halls laughing, only for staff to discover no children are actually staying on that floor. Some guests claim to hear heavy boots pacing above them, even when no one is checked into the rooms overhead. Now, the bar area is especially active. Patrons describe glasses moving on their own, cold gusts of air passing through closed rooms, and the very unmistakable smell of cigar smoke lingering in places where smoking hasn't been allowed for decades. Now, some believe the spirits of former soldiers still gather there, kind of replaying conversations that ended long ago. Others believe the hotel itself absorbed too much history to ever truly rest. Now, guests often say the same thing after staying at the Menger. They didn't believe in ghosts before they arrived, but they weren't so sure once they left. The Stanley Hotel doesn't jump out at you with screams or shadows. It works slowly, quietly, and that's what makes it dangerous. Set against the mountains of Colorado, this grand early 1900s hotel inspired one of the most famous horror stories of all time. But the stories that come from the Stanley didn't start with fiction. They started with guests who couldn't explain what they were experiencing. People report hearing piano music echoing through empty ballrooms. Others describe children laughing in the hallways late at night, even when the hotel is nearly empty. Now, room 217 is the most notorious. Guests staying there report doors opening and closing on their own, lights switching without any explanation, and a very intense feeling of just being watched while trying to sleep. Now, some refuse to stay the entire night, and I don't blame them. The original owners are believed to still appear from time to time, dressed formally, silently observing guests that, and then they vanish just without a trace. I mean, what makes the Stanley especially unsettling is how gentle the hauntings feel at first. Nothing aggressive, nothing overly violent, just enough to make you question your own senses. And then it escalates. People wake up with handprints on mirrors that weren't there before. Voices are heard calling names that don't belong to anyone currently staying at the hotel, and security cameras have captured doors moving on their own. The Stanley doesn't chase you, it waits. And for many guests, that's a lot worse. The Cecil Hotel doesn't feel haunted in a traditional way, it feels cursed. Now located in downtown Los Angeles, the Cecil has been linked to demise, violence, and despair for decades. Serial slayers once stayed there, countless, unalivings occurred inside its walls, but one story pushed the Cecil into global notoriety. A young woman named Elisa Lamb checked into the hotel and simply vanished. Now, days later, security footage showed her inside an elevator, behaving erratically, pressing a whole bunch of buttons, hiding, peering into the hallway as if something unseen was approaching her. Now, weeks later, her body actually was found in a rooftop water tank. The footage went absolutely viral. You'd have to be living under a rock to not know this one. The theories exploded. People around the world dissected every movement, every gesture, every shadow. Some believed she was being followed. Others believed she was being influenced by something supernatural inside the building. I mean, guess who stayed at the Cecil before and after reported strange noises, doors slamming, footsteps pacing outside their rooms, and just this sense of dread. Now, even those who dismiss paranormal explanations admit something about the Cecil just feels wrong. The building seems to attract tragedy like gravity. I mean, renovations have tried to cleanse its, reputation. New names, new paint, new management, but the stories don't stop. I mean, some places don't need ghosts to be haunted. The history alone is enough. The Copper Queen Hotel feels different from the others. Now, the haunting here are quieter, it's closer, it's a little more personal. Built at the height of Arizona's mining boom, the Copper Queen has hosted miners, politicians, and travelers for over a century. And many people believe some of them never just checked out. I mean, the most frequently mentioned spirit is a woman believed to have passed away after a broken heart. Now, guests report hearing very soft footsteps following them down hallways, only to turn around and find no one's actually there. Male guests often report something far more disturbing, a woman's voice whispering directly into their ear when they're alone, which might be nice sometimes, but usually isn't. Not shouting, not screaming, just close enough to make the hairs on their neck stand up, and not in a good way. Others report feeling a presence sit beside them on the bed, or seeing a woman dancing at the bottom of the stairs before vanishing mid-step. Now, the Copper Queen doesn't rely on jump scares. It invades personal space, and for many guests, that makes it completely unforgettable, Now, if you ever find yourself staying in one of these hotels, listen closely, okay? Because something might be listening back. Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia. Now, imagine standing in a long, cold corridor, the paint peeling from the walls, the silence so heavy it presses against your chest. Suddenly, you hear footsteps echoing, but when you turn, no one's there. That's Eastern State Penitentiary, one of the most haunted prisons in the world. Built in 1829, this Gothic fortress pioneered the Pennsylvania system of total isolation. Prisoners were locked in tiny stone cells, forbidden to speak, forbidden to even see one another. The goal was penitence. Now, the result was madness. Now, visitors and guards reported hearing screams at night, even back in the 1800s. Inmates clawed at their walls, basically talked to themselves and collapsed into silence, and those who resisted met punishment straight out of a nightmare. The mat chair, where men were strapped so tightly their circulation stopped until they were left maimed. Now, the iron gag, where a bar clamped into the prisoner's mouth and was basically chained to their hands behind their back. Every time they moved, the gag tore at their lips and tongue. Others were thrown into something called the hole, which was an underground pit with no light, no food, and no air for days at a time. All of that anguish left scars in the stone. Paranormal investigators who visit Eastern State often capture strange orbs, glowing streaks of light, and even disembodied voices on tape. One guard swore he saw a shadow figure pacing inside a locked cell. Another visitor described being overcome by nausea as though, the walls themselves were closing in. And then there's the story everyone knows. Al Capone, the most famous gangster of all time, was sentenced here in 1929. Unlike other inmates, Capone's was given a lavishly furnished cell with carpets, a desk, and even a radio. But even with his comforts, he was terrified. He would scream at night that James Clark, the man assassinated in the St. Valentine's Day mass assassination, well, he was in the room with him. That's what he claimed. Now, guards said he begged the ghost to leave him alone. Cell block 12 is still the most infamous. Guest reports laughing, echoing through the halls when no one's there. Cell block 6 is known for shadows darting from one doorway to another, and cell block 4 is where you'll hear footsteps that follow you even though you're alone. Now, some say it's just the echo of a broken building. Others swear it's the echo of broken souls. Cambria County Jail in Ebensburg. Now, not all haunted prisons are huge Gothic castles. Some are small, tucked away in quiet towns, and that makes their stories even stranger. The Cambria County Jail in Ebensburg is one of those places. Built in 1872, this jail became infamous for executions. Now, 11 men were hung up on its gallows. Locals still whisper that these condemned never left. Visitors claim they hear the sound of sobs and dragging chains near the site of the hang-ups. Now, the most disturbing tale is about a prisoner known as Smitty. According to legend, Smitty was locked in his cell one night only to vanish by morning. The bars were intact, the locks unbroken, guards searched everywhere, but he was gone. Now, some believe he escaped. Others say his spirit simply slipped out, leaving his body behind. To this day, the cell where Smitty was kept gives people an overwhelming sense of dread. Visitors describe flickering lights, sudden temperature drops, and the uneasy feeling of being watched. During paranormal tours, people have smelled cigarette smoke in empty corridors. Footsteps echo on staircases no one is climbing. The gallows area is especially active. Cold spots form suddenly, voices whisper in the dark, and some tourists have said they've even left in tears, claiming invisible hands push them. The jail's thick brick walls amplify every noise, making it hard to know what's real. But too many people have left shaken, convinced something beyond explanation is inside. Old Allegheny County Jail and Western Penitentiary in Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh is home to not one but two prisons with chilling reputations, the Old Allegheny County Jail and the Western Penitentiary. The Old Allegheny Jail is a fortress-like building linked to the courthouse by the Bridge of Sighs. The most famous ghost story tied to this jail involves Mrs. Kate Soffel, the warden's wife. In 1902, she helped two convicted inmates escape after falling in love with them. The jailbreak ended violently. The brothers were hit by a firearm and Mrs. Soffel herself nearly unalived. People say her spirit lingers in the jail, wandering the corridors she once paced. Tour guides tell of hearing a woman's whisper, faint sobbing, or the sudden slam of cell doors when no one's actually near. Just across the city was Western Penitentiary, a prison that once held Confederate soldiers during the Civil War. Now, some claim those prisoners never left. Visitors report cold spots, muffled voices in the night, and shadowy figures dressed in outdated uniforms drifting through the halls. Paranormal groups have investigated and say they recorded faint cries and shouts and accents that don't sound modern. Even hardened locals admit these places just feel different. You can tour many old buildings without a problem, but in Allegheny and Western Penitentiary, it feels like the past is waiting for you. State Correctional Institution in Rockview, this is in Benner Township. And if there's one thing more chilling than abandoned prisons, it's the prison still in use because the energy there is fresh. Rockview is one of them. Now, since 1915, this prison has been the site of executions in Pennsylvania. More than 300 men have been put to demise here, first in the electric chair and later by lethal injection. Now, the prison death house is where condemned inmates spent their final hours. Guards whisper about it, footsteps echoing down empty halls, lights flickering in the execution chamber. The sensation of being watched even when they're alone. Some refuse to do rounds near the house unless they're paired with another officer. Visitors on official tours say the air feels heavier in that building. Paranormal investigators who've managed to get permission describe recording unexplained sounds, knocks, cries, even static-like voices on electronic devices. Some claim this house carries the energy effigy of every man who ever walked inside and just never walked out. Unlike other prisons, Rockview isn't frozen in time, it's still active. That means the terror is ongoing, and so of course are the whispers of ghosts. Holmesburg Prison in Philadelphia. Now, Holmesburg Prison is maybe the darkest story of them all. Built in 1896, it became infamous not just for riots and assassinations, but for something even more disturbing: experiments. Beginning in the 1950s, inmates were used as test subjects for pharmaceutical and chemical companies. Men were exposed to really toxic substances, radiation, and even biological agents. Many of them suffered burns, scarring, and lifelong illnesses. Prisoners described being treated like lab rats, their skin painted with chemicals that left really horrible blisters. Some claimed they were injected with substances they just never identified. Decades later, survivors said Holmesburg left them scarred in body and in their soul. With that much human suffering contained in one place, it's no surprise people call it cursed. Paranormal investigators report, hearing screams echoing through abandoned cell blocks, locals walking past at night saying they've seen shadowy figures in the windows, pacing back and forth. Some visitors describe sudden nausea and panic attacks inside even. The building itself adds to the dread. Very long hallways, crumbling walls, barred windows that look like staring eyes. And when you walk through Holmesburg, you don't just see history, you feel it pressing down on you, as if the walls themselves remember. Now, each of these prisons hold more than criminals. They hold pain, grief, and fear that, refuses to basically pass on. Eastern State shows us what silence can do to the human mind. Cambria County proves executions don't erase suffering. The old Allegheny Jail and Western Penitentiary remind us that history still breathes in the dark. Rockview reveals the weight of passing itself, and Holmesburg carries scars of cruelty disguised as science. These aren't just ghost stories, they're reminders of how deep human suffering goes and how it lingers. St. Mary's Church, located in Clophill, England, and better known as Satan's Ruins. In the sleepy village of Clophill lies a ruined church that has become infamous for ritualistic black masses and grave desecrations. Now, in 1963, vandals broke into St. Mary's Church, exhumed corpses from the graveyard, and arranged human remains in occult symbols. It shocked the nation, and believe it or not, that was just the beginning. Since then, paranormal investigators have documented seeing glowing orbs, shadow figures moving among the tombstones, and cold winds sweeping through on calm nights. One psychic claimed the site radiates pure malevolence. Local legend says a secret underground chamber beneath the altars where initiations into satanic cults took place, and some claim it's actually still used today. The kicker? Phone and camera batteries reportedly drain instantly when you try to record there at night, so if you visit, be sure to pack a portable charger with you. The Church of the Nine Ghosts in the Philippines, known as the Possessed Parish. This one is hidden in the jungle outside Quezon and is a crumbling stone church locals call Simbahan Siam Namulto, which is the Church of Nine Ghosts. It's said to be haunted by 9 priests who were unalive during World War II. The church is now abandoned, yet travelers swear they've seen ghostly robbed men lined up in the pews just silently watching. Creepy, right? One backpacker took photos and later found 9 blurred figures behind her in every single image, and that's despite her being alone. There's even an audio recording where a woman's voice whispers "Bumalik ka," which is Filipino for "come back." Paranormal groups that investigated the scene reported sudden nausea, burns on their skin, and full body apparitions. Now, many refused to return there, so with that in mind, my recommendation is to not go. Old St. George's Church in the Czech Republic. Now, this one is known as the Living Statues. In 1968, the ceiling collapsed mid-service at Old St. George's Church in Lakova. Now, that incident sparked whispers of a curse, and eventually, the building was actually just left to rot. Now, years later, an artist installed dozens of ghostly statues, resembling mourners frozen in prayer, but visitors that go say the statues actually move. Some turn their heads, others disappear entirely, only to reappear the next day in a completely different pose. Tourists report extreme chills, phantom voices reciting Latin prayers, and sensations of being watched from inside the pulpit. One woman who went actually fainted while standing amongst the statues and claimed she saw the face of her deceased mother in one of them. That's just terrifying. Our Lady of the Angels Cathedral, located in Los Angeles, and this one is known as the Screaming Sanctuary. LA's massive Our Lady of the Angels Cathedral was actually built in 2002, so not that long ago, but beneath it lies the site of a 19th century cemetery. Now, during construction, workers uncovered human remains, and ever since, whispers of strange phenomena have followed the church. A priest actually reported that the confessional booths shake violently at night. One security guard actually quit after seeing a woman in a veil walk through a locked glass door, whispering, "You buried me wrong." And during a 2014 midnight mass, a live microphone picked up a scream that none of the people there could actually hear in person. Only those listening online heard it. Audio engineers couldn't explain it either, so it's still a mystery. But the Vatican sent an inquiry the next month, and even still, nada. So visit at your own risk, but report back if you do and let me know how that goes. Borgvanet Church in Sweden. This one has a pastor that never left, reportedly. Now, the Borgvanet Church in northern Sweden is so haunted, it was actually converted into a hotel for ghost hunters. Built in 1876, the rectory was home to many pastors who all reported violent poltergeist activity, and one claimed he was even thrown from his chair by invisible hands. Visitors who go here hear crying babies, doors slam on their own, and chairs that are rocking by themselves. Now, a photo from 1981 reportedly shows a woman in 19th century clothing floating in a hallway. Now, if you stay the night, you're actually given a certificate, but most don't actually make it until dawn. So one woman locked herself in the bathroom for hours, saying something was trying to crawl into her body. So you literally get a certificate if you make it. It's kind of like when a burger joint gives you a prize if you finish their like 20-pound burger in 30 minutes. Honestly, I love a good challenge. This one seems worth it to try. I mean, I'm not gonna go, but you go and come back and tell me if you made it. We'll be waiting. Stoll Church in Kansas, USA, which is also known as the Devil's Gateway. Now, the Stoll Cemetery and church are so feared, some locals won't actually say its name out loud. Legend says a hidden staircase beneath the church ruins leads directly to hell, and that the devil himself rises there twice a year, once on Halloween and once on the spring equinox. Now, the church was mysteriously torn down in the 90s at some point, but stories persist. Visitors have seen hooded figures appear behind gravestones and then just vanish. Electronics fail instantly, and one woman claims her unborn baby stopped kicking in her belly during her visit and only resumed movement when they actually left the grounds. So that's creepy. Even Pope John Paul II reportedly diverted his plane around Kansas to actually avoid flying over Stoll. So yeah, this one is a no for me. I'm good. Notre Dame de la Garde in Marseille, France. Now, this is the Church of Unanswered Prayers. Known as the protector of sailors, this basilica in Marseille has a dark undercurrent. During storms, prayers are basically offered here to keep boats safe, but locals say if your prayer is rejected, you'll know instantly. Several fishermen have gone missing at sea after visiting the church and reportedly mocking its sacredness. Now, inside, people have heard whispers in Italian or Latin despite no one being nearby. A journalist caught a photo of what looks like a black shadow with horns looming in the upper gallery. Some visitors describe being overcome with grief and dread despite, entering feeling completely normal. Locals say the church knows who you are and what you've done. I don't need my dirty laundry aired out, so I'm gonna pass on this one. Poveglia Island Church in Italy. Now, this is the island of no return, as you know. Now, off the coast of Venice lies Poveglia Island, once a quarantine zone for plague victims and later home to an asylum. The island has a crumbling church where the bell tower still rings, even though the bell was removed years ago. Legend says a doctor who basically tormented patients threw himself from the tower after claiming he was being dragged to hell by ghosts. His body was never recovered. No one lives there now. Locals say if you try to set foot on the island, you'll never feel clean again, whatever that means. And some believe the church was never holy to begin with, only built to hide the evil beneath it. Churches are meant to be places of peace, right? Forgiveness and light, but these are the ones where the light no longer reaches. Whether cursed, abandoned, destroyed, each of these churches have become something else entirely, maybe even gates to hell. Which one creeped you out the most? Drop your answer below. If you're brave enough, visit one of these places. Don't forget to say a prayer before you do. Thanks so much for watching. I'm your host Ashley. Until next time, stay scared. These scary places you're not allowed to visit have some demonic activity going on, so count your lucky stars. You're forbidden to take take a trip to any of them. Poveglia Island in Italy, also known as the Island of the Damned. They say you can still hear the screams of the tormented souls who passed away here. Poveglia Island in Venice is completely off limits to tourists, and for good reason. It was used as a quarantine zone during the Black Plague, where over 160,000 infected people were sent there to pass away. Later, in the early 1900s, a psychiatric hospital was built on the island where legend says a deranged doctor performed lobotomies and eventually threw himself off the bell tower after claiming he was being tormented by demons himself. Now, locals refuse to go near it. Fishermen won't even drop anchor nearby. It's still a haunted island to this day, so go at your own risk. The Monte Cristo Homestead. This is in New South Wales, Australia. Australia has its fair share of haunted spots, of course. You know, old asylums, decaying theaters, battlefields, but nothing compares to the Monte Cristo Homestead. Now, locals call it the house that breathes hate, basically, and the footage from inside proves that description is an exaggeration. Built in 1885 on a hill overlooking the small town of Juni, the Monte Cristo Homestead looks like the picture of colonial wealth. Iron lace balconies, grand staircases, the kind of architecture that whispers, you know, old money. But its history reads like something torn from a horror novel, a string of passings, cruelty, and very dark rituals that seem to have soaked into the walls. When Christopher Crawley built this mansion, he was already known for ruthless business dealings. Town workers said he treated servants like property. There were whispers that those who crossed him simply vanished. Now, after Crawley passed away suddenly of poisoning of some sort, his widow locked herself in the house, draping every window in black fabric and refusing to step outside for the rest of her life. She read the Bible every day, start to finish, for 40 years until she passed away sitting in the same chair. The pages open in her lap. You can't make this up. Now, visitors swear that chair still moves on its own when you say her name, but here's where it gets darker. A maid supposedly fell to her demise from the upstairs balcony, pushed, according to witnesses. A stable boy was burned alive in a barn fire, and his screams echo throughout the valley. I mean, a mentally disabled servant named Harold was also chained to the caretaker's cottage for years and eventually found deceased, curled on the floor. I mean, each time the house changed owners, more tragedies followed. And now, well, the footage, paranormal teams have actually captured light anomalies, footsteps, also disembodied voices, the usual. But the videos that keep surfacing online, well, they go beyond orbs and flickers. They show intelligence. In one clip from 2012, a woman walks through the upstairs hall holding an EMF meter. As she passes the nursery, the meter spikes into the red and the baby carriage in the room moves forward by itself. It doesn't roll downhill because the floor is flat. It's as if something invisible gave it a quick shove. Now, in another video, a cameraman filming an empty corridor screams and drops the camera. When the footage is recovered, a black figure in a Victorian dress can be seen at the end of the hall, head tilted and, you know, hands folded in front of her chest. The figure stays still until the camera shakes and then vanishes. No fade, no blur, just gone. Repeat visitors are treated differently. One psychic claims that on her second visit, she heard her own name whispered in her ear, and another reported being shoved down the stairs as well after she taunted the ghost of Mrs. Crawley. I mean, the push was so strong, she actually broke her wrist. So yeah, locals say the house isn't haunted by one spirit, it's cursed by all of them. And a psychic team from Sydney once spent a night conducting an EVP session around 3 a.m. One of their cameras filmed shadows crawling up the walls, moving opposite the direction of the light source. I mean, the next morning, that same investigator actually woke up with claw marks across his ribs. Even skeptics admit that the Monte Cristo footage is disturbing. The current owners run, you know, guided night tours, and they've installed security cameras in every room, so guests can actually pay to review the recordings, and almost every night something moves. You know, a chair, a door slams, a reflection, you name it. So if you ever visit, you'll hear the same warning. Be polite to the Crawleys. Don't taunt them. Don't stay alone upstairs, because people who do often end up leaving with more than just a story. They leave literally with nightmares that follow them home. The Stanley Hotel in Colorado. You've probably heard of this one, and even if you didn't know, you know, it was real, well, it is. Well, the Stanley Hotel inspired the movie The Shining, which we all know, but what's less known is that the haunting started long before Stephen King ever checked in, and the evidence caught on video since then is so consistent that the hotel actively posts some of it themselves. So the Stanley sits high in the Rocky Mountains, isolated and wrapped in mist. It opened in 1909, built by inventor and entrepreneur F.O. Stanley, the man who created the Stanley Streamer automobile. Now, the hotel was meant as a luxury retreat for the wealthy, but almost immediately guests began reporting odd events: piano playing in empty rooms, children's laughters in the halls, doors closing softly when no one's there. And when F.O. Stanley passed away in 1940, staff said they continued to actually see him walking the corridors in a formal suit, checking on guests. His wife Flora loved to play the piano piano, and decades later, visitors still record the piano moving on its own, playing on its own, and the faint echo of those same notes in the middle of the night. Now here's where it gets tangible, actual documented footage. In 2016, a tourist took a photo of the grand staircase inside the Stanley. When she reviewed it later, a small girl in a white dress appeared on the steps, looking directly at the camera. She wasn't there when the photo was taken, and no children were registered guests that evening. Now, the hotel's security confirmed the photo wasn't tampered with, and the figure's, outline is crisp. It's proportionate and partially translucent. Another piece of viral footage from 2021 shows a shadow figure crossing the lobby just before midnight, and the motion sensor camera recorded a dark mass gliding from left to right, triggering the lights. The manager checked the feed, no one entered or left at the time, and no light source could have caused the shadow. So guests staying in room 217, the same room that inspired, Stephen King's Nightmare, reports, that lights are turning on and off, and women's voices telling them to tidy up. I mean, that spirit is believed to be Elizabeth Wilson, a housekeeper who survived an explosion in that room in 1911. She was blown through the floor, broke both ankles, and still returned to work after recovering. I mean, guests say she tucks them in at night even, adjusts their covers, and locks the doors from the inside. Yet, some of the most convincing proof doesn't come from amateurs, it does come from the professionals as well. During one session, thermal cameras captured two bright orbs hovering inches above the piano keys. Then, the piano lid lifted by itself, no fishing line, no wind. The footage aired unedited. So the Stanley staff doesn't deny any of this. They embrace it. I mean, they've set up their own cameras, and they see curtains, shifting in empty rooms and people walking by. Even King's own experience here is chilling. I mean, during his stay, he dreamt his son was running down the long empty hall screaming as if he was chased by a fire hose that had come to life. He woke up drenched in sweat, and the next morning, he wrote The Shining. So at the Stanley Hotel, you don't need to believe in ghosts. You just need to spend one night listening, and the house will make you.
All right, I think I'm going to kick off today with a case from Detroit, Michigan. The mystery of the disappearance of Phyllis Ann Flynn is one that lingers, casting a shadow over the years that have passed since that fateful night in May of 1988, which was before I was born. It's a puzzle that has defied resolution, leaving family and investigators grasping at straws in their quest for answers. After a birthday celebration at the Hotel Yorba in Detroit, Flynn vanished without a trace. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance are as mysterious as the hotel itself. She had requested that her father pick her up, a plea that would echo throughout the years as a haunting reminder of the unanswered questions. Now, the timeline of events is hauntingly sparse. A few days after her birthday, Flynn called home, signaling her desire to be retrieved from the Hotel Yorba. However, when her father arrived, she had evaporated into thin air, leaving behind an eerie void, and nobody has heard from her since. In the years that followed, the case went cold, a perplexing enigma with no breakthroughs. The detective assigned to Flynn's case retired, and the shadows seemed to close in on the scant leads. But even as the official investigation drew to a close, a glimmer of hope persisted among those determined to unravel the mystery. A family friend and a diligent Michigan State police detective breathed some new life into the cold case back in 2014, so about a decade ago, reigniting the flame of inquiry. The Community United Effort Center for Missing Persons brought national attention to Flynn's disappearance, thrusting it into the spotlight of awareness-building efforts. The passage of time has not dimmed the resolve of those seeking closure. The Missing in Michigan campaign, led by Detective Sarah Krebs, has tirelessly worked to unearth fresh clues. The story of Phyllis Flynn found its place on billboards, a visual plea for information that could hopefully pierce through the fog of uncertainty. But to this day, the question remains: what happened at the Hotel Yorba? The void left by Flynn's disappearance resonates, a silent call for answers. The reward offered by Crime Stoppers of Michigan stands as an incentive, a monetary beacon beckoning anybody with information to step forward. But with the passage of 36 years, the harsh reality is lingering. Flynn's family, against the odds, clings to hope that she might still be alive. But sadly, the Hotel Yorba, once a backdrop to a birthday celebration, now stands as a silent witness to a disappearance that continues to baffle those who seek resolution. So I don't exactly have a name for this next hotel, outside of knowing that it's somewhere in the UK. I know, vague, but it was worth telling today. Imagine a place shrouded in whispers and veiled in the unknown. A hotel that, over the years, has become an unsettling enigma, a backdrop to a haunting mystery that eludes comprehension. It's not your typical story. It's a tale woven with threads of uncertainty and shadowed by the inexplicable disappearances of 66 young people. Nestled in the heart of the countryside, this hotel, with its weathered facade, stands as a testament to a history stained by the unexplained. The corridors echo with the distant laugh of young people who once roamed freely, their footsteps now silenced by a force that transcends the boundaries of our understanding. The first whispers of the mystery dates way back, like decades, a quiet murmur amongst locals who traded stories of curious occurrences. As time unfolded, so did the tales of the vanished youths, leaving a chilling imprint on the history of this seemingly ordinary establishment. Each disappearance, if we're going to compare it to something, maybe a jigsaw piece missing from a larger puzzle, paints a spectral image of uncertainty. The missing people, diverse in their backgrounds, ages, and stories, all converge at this point, their common thread being a vanishing act that perplexes even the most seasoned investigators. The authorities, puzzled and haunted by the lack of clues, have combed through the hotel's history, interviewed witnesses, scrutinized every nook and cranny, but they've got nothing. The answers remain elusive, like ghosts slipping through the fingers of those who seek them. The hotel itself, with its creaking floorboards and flickering lights, becomes a stage where the mundane collides with the mysterious. An invisible hand seems to orchestrate a malevolent symphony, leaving behind a disconcerting silence in the wake of each disappearance. The local community, once welcoming, now gazes upon the hotel with a mix of fear and curiosity. Whispers in the wind suggest that the place holds secrets, that it harbors an otherworldly energy, indifferent to the laws of our reality. As the count of those who have vanished climbed, the hotel's reputation transformed. It became more than bricks and mortar. It was just this living, breathing entity with a story. The rooms, once filled with the innocent laughter of youth, now resonate with an eerie stillness, a reminder of those who stepped into the shadows and never returned. Yeah, that's not somewhere I want to visit. No thank you, I'll leave the mysteries there. I don't need to unravel them. Now next up we have a legend that I believe to be true. Many years ago, an English woman and her daughter, at the conclusion of a tour in the Near East, arrived at a Paris hotel at the time of the exhibition. They were given separate rooms, one above the other. Trust me, I wouldn't want to be in the same room as my mother. After resting for a few hours, the daughter went to go see her mother, but the room was empty and completely altered. Like new wallpaper, new furniture, new everything. She was panicking. She called the maid and then the manager, and the manager was like, "You're under a delusion. When you arrived at this hotel, you were quite alone." But the girl was like, "No, we signed our names in the visitor's book, mother and I." So they brought out the visitor's book, and above the daughter's name, what the mother had signed, was a signature of a stranger. Now, it wasn't until about a year later that the daughter learned that her mother had died suddenly of the plague, and that in order to save Paris from, crazy panic and the exhibition from absolute ruin, it was hurriedly agreed by the authorities that the death should be completely hushed up, and that the daughter should be made to believe, by the repeated denials of hotel servants, hotel managers, and cabmen, and the proofs of, the changed room and the altered visitor's book, that her unfortunate mother never reached the hotel. Imagine, you go to take a nap and you wake up and all of a sudden, okay, mom's gone, and you're Delulu. The girl allegedly found out the truth in a letter from a chambermaid. So when the story was originally told at a dinner at the house of Arthur Benson, Arthur Balfour, at the time, British Prime Minister, they were all hanging out, and Balfour was like, yeah, I'm gonna guess the ending. Now, a journalist for the Pall Mall Gazette, I think this was around 1913, talked to the author who originally published the tale, a Mr. Clement K. Shorter, noting by this time, of course, we've all heard the story. What's the truth to it? And Mr. Shorter's like, no, I believe it happened. It is a heck of a lot easier to believe that it happened than it was invented. And given an illness under precisely the same circumstances, the French police authorities are the only police authorities in the world who are equal to coping with it so brilliantly. I can't imagine waking up and being told, hey, you're completely wrong. No thank you. Now for a tale that cursed me to my core, Liz, Sarah, and the Cosmos Resort. 2 years ago, a seemingly ordinary vacation turned into a nightmarish odyssey for a pair of friends, Liz and Sarah. The backdrop? A hotel that, despite its outward appearance of renovation and cheerfulness, concealed a darkness that would shake the very core of their existence. So the girls went in the lobby, they're like, okay, we're gonna go sign in. But there was this feeling of unease that was just sort of everywhere in the air. The check-in process was marked by odd glances and a peculiar conversation with the hotel staff. But they got upgraded. Woohoo! Room 347. This room with a view that won Sarah over. Seemed like, okay, things are getting better. Maybe my gut's just off. Maybe I need a nap. The first night was uneventful for Sarah, but for Liz, the shadows whispered secrets that kept her awake. Strange scratching noises emanated from behind the walls, which, yikes, that's not a soundtrack I want when I'm trying to sleep. And it only got worse as the days went on. A hidden door, concealed behind a nightstand, revealed a narrow, ominous space that reeked of rust and bleach. Yeah, that's terrifying. As Sarah delved deeper into the mystery, she discovered a network of tunnels, a dark labyrinth that extended beneath the hotel. The eerie passageways, laden with the stench of decay, hinted at a sinister purpose, one that became much more apparent as time went on. Liz's disappearance on the final night of their stay plunged Sarah into a desperate search for answers. The hotel staff's nonchalant response and the dismissive attitude of the police created an air of conspiracy. Sure, because the hidden door that led to under the hotel with the stench of decay wasn't enough. Determined to unravel the enigma, Sarah returned to the haunted hotel, guided by an invitation that seemed to taunt her, if you will. The nights after became a harrowing exploration of the hotel's hidden layers. The H sections, neglected and avoided, hinted at a malevolence that defied, my brain. The discovery of a bricked-up elevator shaft and the disturbing encounters in the narrow tunnels hinted at a malevolent force that lurked within the hotel's very foundation. So, fast forward, it's the final night, and in a desperate attempt to retrace Liz's steps, Sarah was led to an encounter with entities that, well, weren't of this world. Liz, or a distorted version of her, beckoned from the shadows. The nightmarish entities, with eyes that pierce the darkness, pursued Sarah through the dilapidated corridors, transforming the once grand ballroom into a grotesque spectacle. Now, this whole mess reached its climax on the mysterious 7th floor. The revelation that Liz's encounter in the tunnel had birthed something malevolent, something that wore her face, but harbored unspeakable horrors. Yeah, it painted a bit of a grim picture. The hotel's twisted reality, where time and space lost coherence, left poor Sarah grappling with a profound sense of dread. Now, this sad story concludes with Sarah's escape, but the psychological scars, they run deep. The fear of encountering those otherworldly entities, of witnessing the distorted face of Liz, yeah, that's gonna linger like a memory you don't want to have. The hotel, now a malevolent entity in its own right, kind of stands as a thin veil that separates our world from the other world, and not one you want to go near. Time to travel over to the heart of Santa Fe, and no, that isn't a cue for Newsies and Rent fans, so hush. Nestled within the walls of the La Posada Hotel lies a tale that, well, it's gonna give you some nightmares, folks. That's a narrative steeped in mystery, spectral apparitions, and unexplained phenomena. Cool, we got the whole trifecta. Room 256, once the abode of Julia Staub, echoes with the whispers of a bygone era, where the living and the dead seem to converge in a dance of the paranormal. Is it a ballet? So Chuck Barone, a vigilant security guard, recounted an eerie encounter that unfolded in this specific room of the hotel. In the company of a bellhop and a group of tourists, they approached said room, room 256, responding to a mysterious voice emanating from within. "I'm in here," it beckoned, yet upon investigation, the room was empty, with its windows locked from the inside, so there was no getting out of there. There was a phantom presence. Unseen, but you felt it. The paranormal enigma extended way beyond Chuck's story, by the way. His son John, a fellow guardian of the hotel secrets, if you will, witnessed a ghostly face in the men's room mirror. It was a woman's face, staring back at him, sending a shiver right down his spine, and this inexplicable encounter left him pale and shaken, which, yeah, that tracks. Ross Weisenhoff, once a skeptic, found himself entangled in the spectral tapestry of the hotel as well. Awakening in the middle of the night, he noticed a luminescent figure at the foot of his bed. This entity morphed into the ethereal form of a woman, fixating on him with an otherworldly gaze. Now, this encounter shattered his skepticism, prompting a swift, "I'm getting out of here," as you do. The genesis of these ghostly manifestations lies in the tragic history of Julia, the lady of the mansion turned spectral hostess. She was once the vibrant center of Santa Fe's social tapestry, but fell into self-imposed exile after the loss of her 8th spawn. The Grand Mansion, a testament to love and opulence, transformed into the La Posada Hotel in 1936. Enter Christopher Chacon, a seeker of truth from the Organization of Scientific Investigation and Research. Alongside a team of experts, he delved into the paranormal intricacies of the hotel. Physical, psychological, and electrical examinations were conducted, leaving no stone unturned. 12 hours in isolation within the bedroom that's, doing all the bad things, monitoring the environment for any spectral stirrings. Infrared technology and night vision equipment were brought in, but despite the diligence, the source of the haunting remained elusive. Which, okay, we'll let you be. Ghosty ladies can do what you want. I would like to live. It's the Mizpah Hotel, located in Tonopah, Nevada, which is around 200 miles away from Las Vegas. The hotel was a hotspot of celebrities and wealthy investors during the silver boom back in the day, and was one of the first luxury hotels in the entire state. Now these days, it's a mixture of modern and antique, and is considered America's most haunted lodgings. The Mizpah and the nearby Melvada building used to share the title of the tallest building in Nevada until 1927. They're only 5 stories tall. The hotel is named after the Mizpah mine and was the social hub of the town back in the day. Now, while the hotel is one of the area's oldest structures, it was predated by the saloon, which opened its doors in 1907. The hotel was financed by George Wingfield, Cal Brugger, George Nixon, and Bob Govan, a few of Nevada's most well-known financiers. The Mizpah changed hands a couple of times throughout the years until Frank Scott of Las Vegas purchased it in 1979. He updated it to include some modern conveniences, all while preserving the antiquated romance that first drew him and his guests to the hotel in the first place. The hotel's renovation cost about $4 million, and the work took 2.5 years to complete. Now, in 1999, the hotel was shuttered down, and it was quiet, frequented only by the spirits that call the town home. But in 2011, the hotel was purchased by Fred and Nancy Klein of Klein Cellars in Sonoma, who renovated and reopened the building to the public in August of the same year. The hotel now boasts 47 rooms, a bar, and 2 restaurants. These days, hotel guests from all over Nevada and the world visit the area, including ghost hunters looking for experiences with the strangeness. They also look, down the street to the Clown Hotel, but don't worry, I'll talk about that in a moment. And the cemetery. I'll get to that. Most importantly, this hotel is home to the Lady in Red and quite a few other unexplained entities. The building is rumored to be completely infested with ghosts, and legends of strange occurrences have been coming out of the hotel since its inception. One especially horrifying story tells of U.S. Senator Key Pittman dying in the hotel in 1940 and being kept on ice in one of the hotel's bathtubs. With the 100 and something years of tough Nevada history, the ghosts have made quite the reputation for themselves. One spirit reported at the Mizpah Hotel is that of Rose, a lady of the night who met an unfortunate end. Now if you know anything about me, I like a good spooky lady. Guests report her presence after their items mysteriously moved from one place to the other. Rose was a high-class lady that lived on the top floor of the building and met her end by way of hands around her neck, courtesy of a jealous John-turned lover who wanted her to stop her line of work. She refused and sadly met her fate in the same room guests can now book and spend the night in. Cheers! There's also a nameless soldier who is reported to haunt the 3rd and 4th floors of the hotel. His name is, well, unknown. That's all we know. We just know he died there. We can't forget the pair of ghostly young people who haunt the 3rd floor. They're known to play pranks on the guests and are most often seen in hotel rooms and hallways. Multiple guests have reported hearing giggling and hearing their doors open and shut on their own. Oh, you thought that was all? Not quite. There are also 2 bank robbers who were killed during a heist by their co-conspirator. Their ghosts are said to haunt the basement, giving cold chills and strange sensations to visitors and staff who happen to find themselves there. Before I forget, like I mentioned before, the hotel is very close to the very famous Cursed Clown Motel, which is also supposedly haunted. Legend states that the clown statues act as vessels for the miners' ghosts. They possess the dolls and come to life. Apparitions have been seen walking to and from the graveyard, and disembodied voices have been heard saying, "We mined and we died that day." So hey, stay in Tanope at your own risk, I suppose. I so want to force a friend of mine to stay at the Clown Hotel with me one day though. Like, I feel like we'd feel so safe there. If you know, you know. We love our clowns. How about we leave the States for a moment and venture over to the Razorback Inn in Picton, Australia. So I learned about this town back when I did a top 5 scary haunted places in Australia. And while I'm sure every town has its ghost stories and haunted spots, Picton is a little different. This town has apparently more haunted areas per capita than most. It is the most haunted town in all of Australia. This isn't like a self-proclaimed title either, or like an allegedly. It has earned that title. A ghost story sticks out in almost every corner of the town. The inn was built by Oliver Whitting, who was an ex-convict in 1950, and it's believed that his spirit is the main one that now haunts the place. It was first built as a tannery and vineyard, but over the years it has also been used as a guest house, private residence, and restaurant. Nowadays it's part of the Woolaway Woolshed. There are many spooky stories told about the inn. Visitors who stay there have said that they have heard loud noises in the night, and a very loud and noisy ghost is the star of the show. It's a perfect place to stay if you want to go visit the even more haunted Picton Old Main Railway Tunnel, where there are more ghosts than I can count. The most famous of all being that of Emily Ballard, who died in a terrible railway accident. Ghosts for everybody. Alright, back to the USA we go to visit the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. Seeing as I'm currently planning a trip to California, and I'll be flying in and out of LAX, maybe this will turn into a stop I have to force my friends to make. So Hollywood has long been said to be haunted, not by flops, but by the ghosts of stars who came before us. The Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, located at 7000 Hollywood Boulevard, figures in many a ghosty tale. The 12-story hotel opened on May 15th of 1927 and has been a staple of Hollywood life since, including hosting the first ever Oscars back in 1929. Marilyn Monroe had a long association with the hotel. She posed for her first print ad, a toothpaste spot, on the diving board of the hotel pool, and as her career took off, she often stayed in a second-floor cabana at the Roosevelt just overlooking the pool. The hotel provided Marilyn with a tall, dark wood-framed full-length mirror, which after her death was moved to the manager's office. A hotel maid was dusting it one day and saw the reflection of a sad-looking blonde woman. She turned to ask if she could help, but there was nobody there. Well, the mirror is no longer in evidence at the Roosevelt. People can stay in the Marilyn Monroe suite, which is overlooking the pool, and it's got some beautiful vintage furniture. Other ghostly guests have also been reported swimming in the pool, by the way. Not surprisingly, this pool has been deemed buzzy with spirit energy according to experts. Another famous Roosevelt guest was 4-time Academy Award nominee Montgomery Clift. He stayed in room 928 for several months while preparing for his role as an Army bugler in the 1953 classic From Here to Eternity. Now, he was considered one of the most talented actors of his generation, and he was a sensitive spirit who battled demons including a variety of substances, a disfiguring car accident, and depression. Guests who have stayed in room 928 report the brooding spirit of Montgomery turning up the heat and switching on the radio to let everybody know he's still around and still angry about an unfulfilled life. The mournful sounds of the method actor playing the bugle are said after playing the bugle are said to echo down the hallway. Look, I know I definitely want to force my friends to tour the Hollywood Forever Cemetery with me, and now this seems like another stop we might have to make. How about we check out another area known for ghosts in the States, the Bourbon Orleans Hotel located in New Orleans. So after 200 years, a blazing fire, a life taken too soon, and a deadly yellow fever epidemic, one shouldn't expect anything less than a haunted nightmare. This hotel is exactly that, but also offers a dose of luxury along with the haunts. First opening as the Orleans Ballroom and Theater in 1815, it was a place for the socialites of Louisiana society to have their luxurious ballroom dances. It was known for the occasional quadroon balls where wealthy Creole men would engage in secretive affairs with women of society. Now, this theater was later bought out by the Sisters of the Holy Family, the first black order of nuns, and then served as a school and orphanage for young girls called St. Mary's Academy. It was during this time that one of the worst outbreaks of yellow fever took the lives of several charges and nuns. By the 1960s, the Sisters of the Holy Family had grown to several hundred members and had begun to outgrow the building. So they sold the hotel in 1964 and the Bourbon Orleans was born. Today, the hotel provides guests with all the modern luxuries you could ask for while giving them a taste of the real New Orleans. A view of the French Quarter, a balcony over the street, and of course, why we're here, ghosts! Now this place is said to be home to nearly 20 spirits, many of whom died of yellow fever, but there's also the ghost of a Confederate soldier who walks the halls of the hotel, as well as a woman seen dancing under the chandeliers of the ballroom. She dances by herself, but her form indicates that she has some sort of invisible dancing partner. Staff also claim that she hides behind the draperies when she's not dancing, and often shuffles them around to get a rise out of the guests. Some folks even claim to see a pool of redness on the ballroom floor, rumored to be a remnant of a duel between two men who had an argument over a woman. Now, whether or not the woman under the chandelier is the one they fought over has yet to be determined. Rumors also say that a nun took her own life in room 644, and her screams can still be heard to this day. Guests who stay in that room often report being woken up by a nun standing over the bed in the middle of the night. The apparitions of young people praying and nuns watching over them have been seen by many guests and staff, and some guests have reported hearing the laughter and pitter-patter playing in the halls, and others claim to feel small people like tugging on their clothes. Oh, and before I forget, the ghost of a girl chasing after her ball is often seen on the 6th floor. Alrighty, how about we end today with a Canadian location, the Banff Springs Hotel. It has a pretty neat history since it opened in 1888 during the construction of the Canadian Pacific Railway. It's really pretty, but there's one room that visitors should be aware of. Room 873, or well, lack thereof. As the story goes, decades ago a family was killed in this room, and after a lengthy investigation, the room was refurbished and booked out to travelers. Soon after, reports of disturbances flooded the front desk. The legend claims that guests would fall asleep in the room only to be awoken by hollow screams, and when the lights were turned on, they would be startled to find red-stained handprints on the mirrors inside the room. So by the time staff could rush to the room to investigate, the prints would have disappeared. So in efforts to cover up the horrific tale, it was decided the room would be sealed off. The doors were moved, the opening was covered with drywall, and it was made to match the rest of the hallway. So it's undeniable that something has happened to this room, and the staff of the hotel are forced to give overly rehearsed answers when asked about it, so don't bother them. But let's review what we do know. There are rooms ending in 73 on each floor, and a room is located on the floor above and below the missing room on the 8th floor. If you head down the hallway, there are only lights above each doorway. There is one above, well, there used to be one above where the missing room's door would be, in the middle of the hallway. The baseboard is cut where the door would have been, and when you knock along the walls, you'll notice they are made of thick plaster. So as you knock down the hall on the 8th floor, it suddenly changes to a hollow sound right below where the light was, where the door to room 873 would have existed, and it continues for the length of a standard doorway. Back in 2017, the wall was replastered again in hopes to cover up the last remains of the once existing entrance, and the light was removed. But the history remains on the interwebs with photos to prove it.
Number 5. Airth Castle. Airth Castle is a hotbed of paranormal activity, standing tall on a hill overlooking the picturesque Scottish landscape. But don't be fooled by its stunning facade. This place has a dark and mysterious history that goes way back. One of the most famous ghostly residents is the Green Lady. Guys, what color do you think she wears? I'll give you 3 seconds, huh? What's that? That's right. Green. She's known for her emerald attire and is often seen wandering the castle's halls and gardens. It's believed that she was a lover of one of the past lords of the castle, and when she passed, her spirit remained in the castle, forever searching aimlessly for her great lost love. Some visitors have reported feeling a sudden drop in temperature when she's around, and others have even claimed to catch a glimpse of her translucent green figure. Then there's the Grey Lady, who haunts the chapel. She's known to let out ear-splitting screams and often appears distressed. I mean, she's probably upset because people decided to name her such a boring name. I'd be upset too. The story behind her origin remains a mystery to all, but her apparitions have left more than a few visitors wildly unsettled. If you're into a bit of a mystery, which I'm assuming you are, you'll love the hidden chamber at Erith Castle. The hidden chamber is a secret room that was discovered behind a bookshelf, and it is supposedly home to some paranormal anomalies. People have reported hearing unnerving whispers and disembodied voices in there, and some have even seen shadowy figures lurking in the darkness, even when there's no one there. Reports of people witnessing knocking and tapping sounds that echo through the castle have also added to the castle's reputation. It's not uncommon for guests to hear these strange noises when no one else is around, almost following them throughout the structure. Some believe they're communication from the spirits that still reside within the castle's walls. Now, I'm not sure if it meant in the walls, like some type of H.H. Holmes kind of thing, but I don't know. I kind of feel like it is. If you're thinking about visiting Erith Castle, be prepared for the unexpected. Guests have reported sudden temperature drops, the feeling of being watched, and even seeing objects move on their own. Cameras and electronic devices also tend to be pretty much useless to capture these strange occurrences, as they tend to go haywire in the most haunted areas of the castle. If you're up for an eerie adventure, pack your bags and get ready to explore the hauntingly beautiful Erith Castle. Just be sure to bring your ghost hunting gear. You might just stumble upon something unexpected. Number 4. Fyvie Castle. Fyvie Castle is often described as a magnet for all things spooky and supernatural, chock full of some extremely goosebump-inducing occurrences. Fyvie Castle is a grand and imposing structure located in Aberdeenshire, Scotland. It has grand turrets, towers, and beautiful gardens. It's truly a picture-perfect exterior, but of course, as we know, we can't let its picturesque appearance fool us. It's got a dark and mysterious side. Guests have reported all sorts of paranormal experiences, from unexplained shadows to the feeling of being watched. One of the most famous ghostly residents is the Grey Lady. Yes, another Grey Lady, different from the last. She's often spotted gliding through the castle's hallways wearing, you guessed it, a grey silk gown. The story behind her presence says that she was a bride-to-be who passed tragically and suddenly, right before her wedding day. Her presence comes with a sudden drop in temperature and a strange numb feeling throughout their veins. Then there's the spirit of a musician who's said to haunt the castle. His ghostly presence is often accompanied by the sound of a phantom fiddle. I'm naming him the Fiddle Lad. I'll go over with my cello and we can have a creative jam sesh. Fiddle Lad and V. I can see that going places. Now, if you're into the good old-fashioned apparitions, you'll love the story of the Weeping Stone. Legend has it that these stones, which were once part of a long-lost chapel, weep red metallic tears. People that have touched these stones experienced a series of misfortune and bad luck shortly after. If you're planning a visit to Fyvie Castle, be prepared for the unexpected. It's not uncommon for visitors to hear mysterious footsteps or disembodied voices echoing through the grand hallways. Some have even seen objects move on their own, and there's always the ever-present sense of being in the company of unseen entities. Jedburgh Castle is located in the Scottish borders and has a rich history dating all the way back to the 12th century. But it's not just its historical significance that makes it so fascinating. It's the plethora of paranormal activities that has given this place its haunted reputation. The most famous of the ghostly residents is the spirit of Mary, Queen of Scots. This apparently legendary queen was held captive in the castle for all of 1566, and it's said that her spirit lingers to this day, very upset that she was left to perish in the dingy, musty halls of a basement dungeon. Visitors have reported seeing her figure, often in a mournful state, wandering through the castle's rooms and hallways. Some even claim to have felt her presence as though she is sending out a reminder of her tragic end. The castle is also home to the restless spirit of a phantom piper. Piper was sent to explore the underground tunnels beneath the castle, but mysteriously vanished without a trace. I'm not sure why they sent a piper to explore, but I believe that there is more to uncover here. A piper is not meant to explore. They're meant to add a soundtrack to explorers' journeys. His eerie bagpipe music is still heard echoing through the tunnels, as if he's still searching for a way out. Oh my gosh, Fiddle Lad, V, and the Phantom Piper. But that's not all. There have been numerous reports of unexplained footsteps, eerie voices, and even the sound of a horse and carriage passing by. when there are no horses or carriages. The paranormal activity at Jedburgh Castle isn't confined to just one area. It's a full-fledged supernatural extravaganza. From shadowy figures lurking in the corners to inexplicable cold spots, it's a place where the line between the living and the dead becomes blurred. If you're planning a visit to Jedburgh Castle, be prepared for the unexpected. Guests have often reported doors slamming shut on their own, objects moving mysteriously, and electronic devices acting up in the presence of the castle's spirits. Number 2. The Toll Booth. Nestled in the charming town of Forres in Scotland, the toll booth is an excitingly terrifying place where history meets the supernatural. The 19th century building and its grand architecture have a dark side, making it a magnet for ghostly tales and paranormal activities that are sure to leave any visitors in awe and fear. The toll booth was originally a courthouse and jail, which in and of itself is creepy enough, but since its opening there have also been a myriad of ghostly stories, earning it a reputation as one of the most haunted places in Scotland. One of the apparitions that roam the shadowy halls is the spirit of Hector Monroe, a local man who met a tragic end in the 18th century. Hector's presence is often felt in the form of strange, unexplained sounds, an eerie touch, or an icy sensation when entering his former cell. If you're going into his cell and then you're freaked out when something scary happens, that's on you. Don't act surprised, you wanted this to happen. Hector's spirit is just one of the many restless souls that call a toll booth home. The building has more than its share of reports. Mysterious footsteps echoing in empty corridors, unexplained knocking sounds, and objects that seem to move of their own accord. It's as if the past continues to play out its ghostly drama in the present. Last suggestion, a mockumentary about the ghosts in here, like What We Do in the Shadows, but ghosts. But unfortunately, I'm not sure how possible my dream is. It's not uncommon for devices to malfunction or pick up bizarre readings when inside the building. Beneath the structure lies the basement, aptly named the Pit. It was a place of immense suffering for prisoners who were kept in extremely inhumane conditions. The energy of their torment still lingers in the heavy air, and some courageous souls, or audacious souls if you ask me, who venture into the darkness have reported feelings of intense unease, sudden drops in temperature, and strange disembodied sounds originating from the depths of the musty basement. Visitors have described an eerie sensation of being watched and an inexplicable feeling of dread that can wash over them suddenly. The fairy tree is a centuries-old oak tree located in the region of Doris, Scotland, and it is shrouded in both history and supernatural tales. This historical landmark is not only a cherished ancient living relic, but a place that holds hundreds of ghostly tales and legends that have excited and terrified visitors and locals for generations. The history of the fairy tree is deeply rooted in Scottish folklore and traditions. The tree has been long associated with the supernatural, as it used to serve as the focal point for various rituals and ceremonies, often linked to the mystical realm of the fairies. But it's not just the fairies that contribute to the mystique surrounding the tree. The gnarled and ancient oak, with its twisted branches and distinctive appearance, has become a symbol of mystery and awe. Its unique form has secured it a reputation as a sacred place, with some believing it to be a site of ancient druidic rituals. What adds to the mystique is the reported paranormal activity in the vicinity of the fairy tree. Some visitors have claimed to hear otherworldly music, akin to the ethereal tunes of a fairy's harp. Yes! My band is complete. The Fiddle Lad, the Phantom Piper, and the Wrathful Fairies. The fairies' music is frequently heard emanating from the area, even in the absence of any visible musicians. These occurrences, along with strange, unexplained lights and mysterious whispers, have led many to believe that the tree is a site of ongoing supernatural activity. While the fairy tree itself is not known to be inhabited by spirits, the surrounding area has its own tales of ghostly apparitions and strange occurrences. It's said that the spirits of those who were wronged in the past continue to haunt the nearby shores, seeking justice or resolution. These legends have been passed down through generations, and local lore often mentions witnesses' encounters with these restless souls. That brings us to the end of this list. If you had a supernatural band, who would be in it? And if you say a colored lady in a dress, I'll be really disappointed.
Number 5. Otero County Courthouse, New Mexico. In the quiet corners of Alamogordo, New Mexico, I swear I looked that up, lies the Otero County Courthouse, a place where the line between the living and the spectral seems to blur. Those who labor within its walls have stories that chill the very marrow of one's bones. An entity from the, depths of the past, seemingly from the early 1900s, tends to emerge from the shadows. Witnesses have reported sightings of the specter, donned in a timeless suit that echoes an era long past. But it's not just apparitions that haunt this courthouse. It's the inexplicable phenomena that defies the laws of physics. Doors, once left ajar, abruptly close of their own volition, and objects, seemingly devoid of reason, plummet to the ground. Surveillance cameras bore witness to the eerie descent of a donation jar in a bowl on an x-ray machine, casting aside any doubts of, a natural explanation. It went from being, there to kaput, and there was nobody there. For the courthouse's, beleaguered employees, such occurrences are far from isolated incidents. They become the unsettling rhythm of daily life. When the donation jar defies gravity's grasp and crashes, echoing in the empty halls, it serves as a reminder that here, the ordinary has become the extraordinary. One tale recounted by a brave employee takes us into the restroom, where the mundane transitions into the uncanny. While standing alone, she felt an invisible hand tugging at her hair, a sensation that defies rational explanation. In that moment, the solitude of the restroom was shattered by an unseen presence, a ghostly interloper, if you will. Maintenance man Kenneth Schaefer, no stranger to the courthouse's peculiarities, speaks of doors that defy logic. They stand ajar, only to slam shut as if guided by an unseen hand. A stroll through the courtroom can send shivers down one's spine, as an unexplainable chill pierces through their very being, as if the air itself bears the weight of restless spirits. The history of the Otero County Courthouse is steeped in the echoes of the past. A modern structure completed in 1956, it stands upon the remnants of an earlier courthouse, constructed between 1901 and 1903. But it's the specter of a troubled soul from the 1960s or 70s that lingers, a man who chose to end his own life. His presence, or perhaps his torment, has seeped into the very foundations of that place. In the courthouse, the veil between the corporeal and the ethereal grows very, very thin. Number 4, Monroe County Courthouse in Arkansas. The Monroe County Courthouse, a seemingly innocuous edifice, conceals a sinister past that continues to haunt its halls to this day. In the year 1898, the courthouse bore witness to a gruesome racial killing that birthed the malevolent spirits that now reside within. Ghost Eyes, the, harbinger of the eerie, divulges stories of mournful cries emanating from its basement, serving as a chilling reminder of that fateful day. What transpired here was a harrowing sequence of events that shook the very foundation of this community. The roots of this macabre tale stretch back to the troubled household of John and Mabel Orr, where domestic discord festered like a dark omen. John, an actor by profession, was rumored to have subjected his wife Mabel to unspeakable cruelty, igniting violent clashes that punctuated their marriage. However, on that fateful August 5th, fate would deliver a gruesome twist. An unknown assailant shattered the, tranquility of their home, taking John's life in a horrifying manner through the kitchen window. Rumors swirled like malevolent spirits, suggesting Mabel's complicity in her husband's demise, intertwined with the ominous presence of voodoo. As the shadows deepened, Mabel's fate took a sinister turn. Mabel, ensnared by the tendrils of guilt and despair, chose to end her own life, poisoning herself in the bleak confines of the courthouse's basement jail. But the horrors were far from over. 4 servants of the Orr family, Mance Castle, Will Sanders, Rilla Weaver, Sanders' mother, and Dennis Rickard, found themselves incarcerated alongside the tormented spirit of Mabel. The abyss of human darkness consumed them as a meticulously organized mob descended upon the jail, snatching these souls from their mortal coil on August 9th. The maid, Susie Jacobs, also met her gruesome end at the hands of this merciless assembly. The Encyclopedia of Arkansas History and Culture recounts the grim spectacle of Mabel's lifeless form, put on grisly display within the courthouse, serving as a grim testament that she had not escaped her tormentors. The courthouse, once a symbol of justice, now stands as a malevolent sentinel, guarding the secrets of that gruesome summer. Number 3, Navajo County Courthouse in Arizona. Within the haunted tales of American courthouses, the old Navajo County Courthouse emerges as a sinister enigma, where the spirit of George Smiley is said to linger. Smiley's grim fate was sealed when he faced a death sentence for the killing of a railroad foreman, a crime that would shroud the courthouse in an unsettling legacy. Sheriff Frank Watron's macabre sense of humor cast an eerie pall over Smiley's impending execution. He dispatched gilded invitations for the hanging, a grotesque spectacle set for November 11th of 1899. But this twisted jest proved too much for the sensibilities of President McKinley and Governor Nathan Murphy, who swiftly reprimanded Watron, postponing the execution. In response, the sheriff issued another set of invitations, this time veiled in mournful language and adorned with a black border, signaling the ultimate demise of George Smiley on January 8th of 1900. But, The story doesn't end with Smiley's execution. According to a column in the Examiner, the old courthouse now houses the local historical society, but its halls are far from quiet. Eerie noises reverberate throughout the building, and objects move of their own accord, as if guided by unseen hands. It is here that the spectral roommates, including George Smiley and Sheriff Watchman himself, are said to coexist in the realm of the beyond, their presence an enduring enigma. Far from the dusty trails of Navajo County, the Lincoln County Courthouse in Wiscasset, Maine, harbors its own spectral mysteries. In 2011, the courthouse was thrown into a state of disquiet when a motion-sensitive security camera captured eerie footage. County Commissioner Sheridan Bond, armed with a magnifying glass, scrutinized a still frame from the recording, believing he could see a spectral visage within the mysterious entity. Others, although uncertain about the existence of a face, agreed that the camera unequivocally captured something that we can't explain. Oh, the eerie occurrences doesn't end there. That's way too easy. Workers in the district attorney's office have reported sightings of a shadowy figure, manifesting in the late afternoon and early evening, casting a chilling pall over the courthouse. WCSH, the local station, embarked on a quest to, unveil the identity of the entity haunting the courthouse. However, their efforts yielded no definitive answers. The enigma persists, shrouded in the mists of time and history. The courthouse itself, with its origins dating back to 1824, has borne witness to a multitude of souls, some incarcerated, others executed, their stories etched into the very walls of the building. Number 2, Dacia County Courthouse in Arkansas. So, nestled in the heart of Arkansas City, this courthouse holds a spectral secret that has intrigued ghost hunters and courthouse workers alike. Here, the haunting presence of a ghost known as Willard weaves its haunting tapestry throughout the building, defying the bounds of human logic. Local legend intertwines with the supernatural in a tale that centers around the courthouse's clock tower. An unsettling belief holds that the clock, perched high in its tower, has been cursed since the turn of the 20th century. The curse, it is said, was cast by a condemned man who met his grisly end on the courthouse lawn. The alleged arson of a string of hotels, a charge he vehemently denied. In a curious twist, County Judge Mark McElroy once made a campaign promise to mend the clock, as reported by, the local Gazette. However, the appointed clock technician, tasked with repairing the timepiece, dispelled the supernatural aura surrounding it. In his words, back in the old days, they probably did hang somebody out there on the front of the courthouse, or on the steps of the courthouse, or up in the tower of the courthouse, or whatever. I don't dispute that one bit, and the guy may have cursed them on the clock, but that's not the problem with the clock. It's just an old clock, and it needs tender loving care. All of them are that way. Alright, pal. The cryptic saga of the county courthouse embodies the confluence of folklore, history, and the supernatural. Willard's ghostly presence lingers, a reminder that even in the realm of the mundane, the boundaries between fact and legend can blur. Whether it's a cursed clock or the echoes of a tragic past, the courthouse stands as a testament to the enduring mysteries that shroud these haunted halls. Number 1, Mitchell Courthouse in Baltimore. In the corridors of the Clarence M. Mitchell Jr. Courthouse, nestled in Baltimore, Maryland, a spectral presence is said to roam an apparition of historical significance. Supreme Court Justice Roger B. Taney, infamous for the polarizing, Dred Scott decision, is believed to be the source of the unexplained phenomena that has unnerved those who tread upon this hallowed legal ground. Attorney Adam Sean Cohen's harrowing experience within these haunted walls serves as a testament to the otherworldly ambiance that permeates the courthouse. So during a court proceeding, Cohen was gripped by an inexplicable dread, likening the sensation to the frigid aura of a grocery store's frozen food section, where the coldness surrounds you while warmth beckons from within. Overwhelmed by this uncanny sensation, Cohen abruptly left the courtroom, a decision unimaginable in normal circumstances, as judges are typically treated with the utmost, respect. Circuit Judge Wanda Keys Heard, presiding over the proceedings, showed a remarkable understanding of Cohen's abrupt exit. She herself believes that the courthouse is under the spectral watch of justice, that has passed, whose name I don't want to bugger up again. This belief is underscored by the presence of, the name etched upon the dome of the courthouse, a chilling reminder of the historical legacy that lingers. Heard, a descendant of those who endured the dark days of, bad things, humorously speculated that this guy might harbor some reservations about her role in the legal proceedings. However, a curious twist emerges when the courthouse's historian sheds light on the situation. While this ghostly presence is rumored to haunt the courthouse, historical records reveal a peculiar detail. The esteemed justice was never actually inside the courthouse during his lifetime. The courthouse itself was constructed in 900, long after this man's passing in 1864. Instead, it was a neighboring building, now demolished, where this presence resided, a location that has seemingly left quite the mark on the surrounding area. The spectral enigma of the courthouse serves as a chilling reminder that history has a peculiar way of transcending time and place. This justice's ghostly presence, though physically distant from the courthouse itself, continues to cast its ethereal shadow over the legal proceedings that unfold within its walls. It's a testament to the enduring influence of the past, one that defies the constraints of time and logic, leaving those who dare to enter these haunted halls with an unsettling sense of history's weight.